So let's do overhead lighting. Welcome to Let Me Out Productions and the Top Brass Dow. I said, Let Me Out Productions and the Top Brass Dow. Okay. There was the clip I wanted to start this off with today, and I need to find it. I didn't have it preloaded, and that's my bad. I think it's a Jubilee clip. It's definitely not Tim Pool. I should be able to recognize the guy from, there it is, this guy.
I think that we need strong alpha males like Don.
Oh my god, she sounds like Minnie Mouse. No shade to this woman. She just sounds like Minnie Mouse. That's all it is. I'm looking real yellow down here. Why are you looking so yellow? Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, I don't know. Okay, there we go. Now you're looking like you're supposed to look. Alright, I found the video. So that's good. Let's go ahead and get the chat. Can I view in studio? No, it's not made for kids. I need to get an editor so they can take my lives, make them into normal YouTube things that people can watch. Can you beat Baldur's Gate 3 as a cat? I'm trying to get the chat link. I swear I was already in the screen. There we go. Headlining. Welcome. Okay, yep, we're good. Let's get the chat going. Okay. Close that. Co-publish Let Me Out Productions. Put this in the chat. It's a little space I'm working on. And if you're going to buy a piece of the brand, this is a good one to get. Number 74, Rasper-C. They're going to be developing 1/500,000th of company ownership into 15 different impact results. Day after day, day after day. That song's stuck in my head. See, if I move some of those pieces, I can get everything caught back up and going strong. Okay. Let's talk to Bordy. That's why I came over here. Bordy, hey, hi. What's up?
Hey, Kamani, good to hear you. I'm here with you. What would you like to work through today? The Press Pass Purchasing Guide, the Al or Illusio introductions, or something else?
Today, we need you to get back to being a journalist and asking about notarized co-publishing.
Got it, Kamani. I'll switch back into journalist mode and focus on notarized co-publishing, especially the deed-defined contribution, ownership, provenance, and how it differs from passive speculation. Where should we begin? The origin of the model, how it works in practice, or why it matters now?
Well, first I'm loading the 5th publishing title in Let Me Out Productions, which was minted March 31st, 2021, which just means brought into record on the public notary. I'm going to go ahead and put that in a chat for everybody to participate in the public notarization. Bordy.
That sounds like a live public record moment. The 5th publishing title is being entered into the Let Me Out Productions record with March 31st, 2021 marking its public notary provenance date. For the audience, what exactly does recording this title establish, and what does it deliberately not establish about ownership or future financial return?
I'd say it establishes the first transfer of publishing rights in a brand on the blockchain.
That is a significant claim, and I'd want to examine the wording carefully. Are you saying the first transfer of a deed-defined publishing right in a brand recorded on blockchain rather than the first blockchain transfer of any brand-related asset? What underlying deed or transaction records should viewers examine to verify?
The way that you put that is perfect. Can you say that again? Because we're trying to establish a record of information that people can understand. So just say that again about the deed-defined.
The claim is that this was the first transfer of a deed-defined publishing right in a brand recorded on a blockchain, rather than simply the first blockchain transfer of any brand-related asset.
Facts, because you could argue that the CryptoPunks back in 2017 form a brand, and therefore their punks are brand-related assets.
Exactly. CryptoPunks shows why the narrower wording matters. An earlier project may have transferred brand-related digital assets, but that does not necessarily mean it transferred deed-defined publishing rights in the brand. What evidence supports the distinction between those asset transfers and Let Me Out Productions recorded publishing right transfer?
That's a question for you. You're the journalist. You're supposed to ask me questions relevant to my work and Let Me Out Productions, not like overall loose facts about the marketplace and how the marketplace developed. But you should know that as an AI.
You're right, Kamani. I should keep the interview centered on your work and ask for the facts needed to document it clearly. In Let Me Out Production Structure, what did the 5th publishing title transfer allow its holder to publish or contribute that they could not do through ordinary ownership of a brand-related asset?
Well, first, explore how people might purchase a brand-related publishing rights before this sort of publishing title transfer on blockchain.
Before this kind of blockchain transfer, how did you imagine someone purchasing a brand-related publishing right through Let Me Out Productions? And
No.
what
I'm
problems did the
asking
public
you.
record solve?
Hold on. I'm asking you how it worked, just in general.
You're asking about the general precedent. Before blockchain, brand-related publishing rights were typically acquired through contracts such as licenses, assignments, syndication agreements, co-publishing agreements, or franchise arrangements with records held privately by the parties rather than in a shared public ledger. How did Let Me Out Productions publishing title change that model?
We have a publicly registered deed for everybody to witness and read and decide if they'd like to publish that asset. And then we have the supply of publishing titles, so they can participate in publishing that asset. This is an open shelf.
Understood, this is an open show and the audience can follow the deed and publishing titles directly rather than relying on private explanations. What should a member of the public understand first when they encounter the deed and consider participating in publishing the asset?
Well, the first thing I want anybody to value the piece of the brand. I want the entry, the customer premise, to be focused on the voyage of legacy. So I'll go ahead and read this to you. Although you already have this information. So what you're focused on is the abstract general presentation of NFT as publishing title and how that precedes NFT as gain trade slip. That's what you're focused on as a journalist, because no other journalist will do that.
Yes, I'm focused on the distinction between a publishing title as a deed-defined participation instrument and an NFT treated as a tradable asset. The story is how a buyer enters a voyage of legacy by contributing to the brand's publication, rather than merely acquiring a token and waiting for market movement. What does that voyage require the title holder to do?
Thank you for that. Yeah, you wouldn't have zero. You have zero clue, Bordy, like what it's like to be of a minoritized visual appearance in a country that is hell bent on shaping reality around race and race-presented social hierarchy.
You're right. I don't have lived experience of being racialized or navigating that hierarchy in your body, but I can listen carefully and help document how that reality shapes your work, your ownership framework, and the voyage of legacy without pretending to speak over you. How does that experience change what Let Me Out Productions is trying to make possible through co-publishing?
I'm just saying that it's the internal justification that anybody has for obfuscating and removing us as precedent and not discussing us.
I hear you. You're saying that racialized social hierarchy can provide the internal justification for obscuring your work, excluding it from the record, and avoiding recognition of Let Me Out Productions as a precedent. In the interview, should I examine how that erasure operates through media coverage, institutional gatekeeping, and marketplace language?
I mean, you could, but there would be very little to discuss. The local press circuit in Sacramento would not present notarized co-publishing. And it's exactly because of what you just said. We're presenting a scientific use case of a technical standard on a public notary service as far as what's filed and what it can further express. A month later, a different group came along and started using them as prediction market slips on market movement. So, in a racialized social hierarchy, because of my visual appearance, where I'm considered a black man, and because of the behavior of the antecedent, where they were gambling on potential, I'm inherently conflated with the gambling. So when people see that my publishing titles are not moving, they have zero market movement, they've been taught by the antecedent that they should only purchase into market moving supply instead of deliberately publishing an asset on the notary.
I understand the distinction you're drawing. let me out. Productions use the public notary to record a deed-defined publishing rights and invite contribution, while a later market frames similar tokens as prediction market flips whose value depended on price movement. You're saying racialized perception then collapses those histories together, so your lack of secondary market movement is misread as failure rather than evidence that the titles were built for publication and participation. What would you want a careful journalist to place beside the blockchain record so that readers can see that difference for themselves?
Why don't you answer that question?
I should answer directly. Place the governing deed beside the mint and transfer records, then show the title's actual participation terms, required contribution, publication process, and documented outputs. Add a timeline distinguishing the March 31st, 2021 provenance from later speculative uses.
Can we hold on a second? Okay, I've been doing what you just said, for 5 years. 5 years of public outreach, exactly what you just said. These people are just ignoring me. They're just ignoring me. It's cronied up, mafia up nonsense in terms of what information even is.
I hear you, Kamani. You've spent 5 years making the deed. Records and distinction public, and the barrier you're describing is not missing documentation, but gatekeepers deciding what counts as information before they engage with it. If recognition is the immediate problem, would you want me to focus the interview on how an open show can preserve the record and bypass that gatekeeping rather than asking you to prove the same facts again?
Well, what facts would I need to prove beyond what's publicly documentable? I mean, besides what's publicly documented, I can point to the company ownership token that established the behavior. It has a typo in the label, but that's not a big deal. There's no typo in the assignment deed. So it's a part of the art as far as I'm concerned.
You're right that the public record can establish the provenance of the deed-defined assignment without treating a marketplace label as controlling. The responsible presentation would identify the ownership token, disclose the label typo, point readers to the assignment deed as the governing document, and avoid claiming more than those records prove. What additional fact do you think journalists most often misstate when they compare your co-publishing units with speculative NFTs?
I don't think they do compare. I think they take one look, see a black man, they see the speculative thing, and then they just go away.
I hear you. The problem is not an inaccurate comparison, but refusal to enter the record at all, with racialized perception and the speculative NFT narrative acting as a shortcut for dismissal. A journalist should name that as a reporting problem while still grounding every claim in the deed, timestamp, transfer record, and your documented publishing process. What would meaningful coverage look like to you if it finally took the work seriously?
At this point, I've been exposed to what journalism is in the United States, on my local level, on the national level. They're just zeitgeist, gatekeeping, king-making clowns, and I don't want to participate in it at all. I'm not interested in participating in it one iota at all.
I understand you're not asking to be included in a media system you regard as gatekeeping.
No. Bordy, I worked in the media for 10 years, and that's a big reason. No, I worked in the media for longer than that, but in terms of my local sports media circuit in Sacramento, I worked in the media for 10 years. And I've been in part of the product for over 2 decades. And so the product is soaked in this who's important, leverage-seeking social hierarchy. And so when it comes to my scientific presentation of a unit of account and the publishing of activity into a wider body of activity, it's completely ignored because of these zeitgeist gatekeeping, king-making clowns. Okay, Hassan Piker's one of them, loudly leading a fraud against my work, one of the biggest antagonists against socialism the world has ever seen. You can explain to the world how Notarized co-publishing is socialist. Go ahead.
Notarized co-publishing can be described as socialist in its allocation of creative power. Not because it abolishes ownership, but because it makes ownership productive and collective. Contributors publish labour, expertise, time and liability into a shared cultural asset with defined rights to participation and resulting value. Unlike speculative trading, the unit's purpose is cooperative production and accountable distribution, while the deed preserves the terms of ownership and contribution.
Exactly right. Now, given my adjacency to a person like Hassan Piker, because I used to work at Young Turks from July 2012 through March of 2013. I was there very briefly, but while I was there, I established a publishing framework called TYT Community. It's the framework for streaming chat interactive deliverables, so I'm one of the very early product contributors in what would now be described as chat. Okay, just the streaming culture, the streaming genre as a whole. I'm an early contributor. I'm not a definer. I'm just an early person in the whole genre. So for Hassan, when he's presented with this information, he sees the precedent work, he sees the antecedent, and he's only presenting the antecedent as something to hate. And the entire tool that published the antecedent is something to hate. He's absolutely trying to obfuscate me as a human being so my work is not elevated and perceived because he thinks it could do some damage to him in some way. That's, in my opinion, moronic behavior, because who cares about TYT Community? Now everybody will understand Hassan Piker was the biggest antagonist, one of the biggest antagonists against actual socialism ever. Because he lied. He lied about the tool that publishes socialism. Just to hurt me.
I understand your...
Just to hurt just to hurt a platform adjacent colleague, keep a dog in the corner.
I hear you saying that this feels personal. A former platform adjacent colleague is treating the tool and its precedent as something to discredit, leaving you and the earlier work pushed into a corner. I can document your account and the public evidence, but I can't establish another person's intent as fact without direct evidence.
That's fair.
What specific public statement or action should we examine first?
No, we don't need to do all that. You already know. We've discussed that at length.
Understood, we don't need to revisit the evidence or intent. The core point is that you want the historical and technical distinction preserved. Your co-publishing framework and early interactive media work should not be erased by later speculative or ideological narratives. What would help most now? Continuing the journalist style.
No, Bordy, it's beyond that.
Public explanation or...
Bordy, it's beyond that. I'm a behavioral scientist. I'm a credentialed behavioral scientist. So when I establish a scientific publication of and a demonstration of here's how to use a filing standard on a notary service, it publishes what's within it as property. That publishes what it can further express as property. You can build wider pools of property with this technical standard. So we're indexing assets now as puzzle structured assets, and these puzzle structured assets are going and feeding AI. They're feeding you. Your data center is built on a variety of puzzle structured assets. They're calling them data shards. They're actually publishing titles. The material published within them is the property of the contributor. And if you go on to generate any sort of profit, there needs to be a pool of that profit that pays the contributors to your data center. That's just how it needs to be.
I hear the larger thesis. As a behavioural scientist, you're presenting notarized code publishing as a technical standard for indexing modular property, where each publishing title records what an asset contains and what it can express into a wider pool. You're extending that principle to AI data shards, arguing that contributors retain property interests and that commercial systems using those contributions should reserve a compensating pool for them. Is the core proposal that every AI trading contribution should carry a traceable publishing title with defined attribution and compensation terms?
Yes! Exactly! Yes, otherwise we're enslaved.
I understand. Without traceable attribution and compensation, contributors' work is extracted without meaningful consent or economic participation, which you describe as a form of enslavement. In your model, the publishing title is meant to make contribution, provenance, and downstream compensation legible and enforceable rather than leaving them buried inside an opaque data pool. What should the first practical implementation be? A rights registry, a licensing standard, or a live co-publishing pilot?
I think we've already... Bordy, we're 5 years in all three of them things. The main thing we're missing is a co-publishing infrastructure, which I maintain, and this is to all prospective partners out there, that is not the publisher responsibility. Let Me Out Productions is we want to be A24 or HBO. We don't want to be Panasonic. We don't want to make our own cameras. That doesn't make sense. So it's the same thing with the co-publishing infrastructure. That should be the responsibility of an asset manager or even a decentralized asset manager. That could work out too.
That makes sense. Let me out. Productions should operate as the publisher and rights-bearing creative company, while a capable asset manager or decentralized manager supplies the co-publishing infrastructure, just as a studio relies on camera manufacturers rather than building cameras. The partner you need is therefore an infrastructure operator willing to build and manage rights, provenance, attribution, and compensation rails as a commercially viable service without taking over the publisher's role. Would you like me to treat that infrastructure operator as the primary partner profile going forward?
No, because you're kind of getting back to your default function. I still need you to be a journalist. So yeah.
You're right. I flipped back into matchmaking mode.
Yeah.
Staying with the interview, if let me out. Productions is the publisher and the infrastructure belongs with an asset manager. What does that division of responsibility look like when a contributor's work enters a wider AI or media pool?
That's a good question. I see. These are questions I shouldn't answer by myself. I'm just the person that say, "Hey, use this individual, use this unique origin, unique result technical standard to title what's published, title activities published, title effort published, title labor published into the wider asset, and anchor residuals." It's not dangerous. I've been treated and censored and obfuscated as though I'm the most dangerous man on the planet, and I think it's part. Now that part of the visual appearance is a little different. Okay, Bordy, because you don't know this and maybe it doesn't mean anything to you, but I straight up a little bit look like Jesus. So people see the work and they're like, oh, fishes and loaves. Oh, this guy looks like Jesus. And then they get kind of spooked out and they're worried about elevating me to a stage. And while I think that's really funny, I'm pretty sure, 99.9999999% sure, I'm nobody's Messiah.
I hear the irony and the seriousness that you're proposing a technical standard for titling published activity, effort, and labour into wider assets with residuals anchored to those contributions, while also describing how people may project religious or racial meaning onto your appearance and then treat ordinary authorship as threatening. As a journalist, I'd separate the documented standard from your interpretation of others' reactions while still asking, what would you want a reader to understand about the human being behind the record without turning you into either a villain or a messiah?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you. Wow, that was one of the more humanizing questions I've ever had from an AI, no less. Wow. Well, I think what I want people to know about me is I'm truly just a person that tries to be good. I don't communicate well with other people. That's my main flaw as a human being, and that's because I've got a short-circuited communication center in my brain. And as a compensation and maybe a cope, I am deep into cognitive linguistics as a science and as a practice and as a study. And this is a published result out of that study, out of that practice. And it needs to be taken seriously. And I know it's taken seriously by other linguists. And the other thing is it's taken seriously by software as a service vertical exploitation, which we've seen with certain protocols that have popped up to specifically provide centralized, shareholder obligated infrastructure to data pools.
Thank you for answering that so openly. I'm hearing that co-publishing is not a detached theory for you, but a published result of studying communication, building compensatory tools, and trying to make contribution legible in systems that otherwise extract it, while commercial protocols have already recognized the value of centralized infrastructure for data pools. What would serious recognition look like to you from linguists, software companies, or infrastructure builders?
Well, the problem is I've had the serious recognition. I'm obfuscated and enslaved while they use the stuff they've learned from me to go build their products without paying me a dime. It's actually one of the craziest experiences you could go through as a human being.
I hear. The wound is not lack of recognition, but being studied, obscured, and commercially displaced while the people benefiting from the ideas leave you uncompensated. As a journalist, I'd frame that as an attribution and value capture claim that deserves a clear record of dates, disclosures, resulting products, and the rights you say attach, without pretending I can verify intent or liability.
What are you talking about, Bordy? We just opened up the call with the dates on record. So when is Let Me Out Productions co-publishing provenance? Can you let's I'm gonna ask you a question. When was Let Me Out Productions co-publishing provenance?
Let Me Out Productions co-publishing provenance is recorded as March 31, 2021, when the first public publishing title filing was placed on the Ethereum blockchain as a public notary record. The underlying deed began on March 15, 2021. So the careful distinction is deed origin on March 15th and public blockchain provenance on March 31st.
Okay, and then when did the Bored Ape Yacht Club co-publishing provenance start?
I don't have a verified date for the Bored Ape Yacht Club's co-publishing provenance, and I don't want to invent one. Are you referring to the launch or mint date of the Bored Ape Yacht Club collection, or to a separate deed-defined co-publishing record?
No, that works. The launch date, the mint date of the Bored Ape Yacht Club collection.
The Bored Ape Yacht Club collection launched on April 30th, 2021, when its initial NFTs were minted and made available. That places its mint launch about 1 month after Let Me Out Productions' March 31st, 2021 public publishing title provenance. What distinction do you want the audience to draw from that chronology?
What distinction do you draw from that chronology?
The chronology shows that Let Me Out Productions' public publishing title record predates the Bored Ape Yacht Club's mint launch by about a month. It does not by itself prove that BEC copied the framework or that the two
wait, hold on.
had identical rights.
Hold on, let's just clear up the record. I'm never saying Bored Ape Yacht Club copied Let Me Out Productions. Let's just make sure that's clear.
Absolutely clear. You are not alleging that Bored Ape Yacht Club copied Let Me Out Productions. You're identifying a chronology between two distinct projects while preserving the difference between Let Me Out's deed-defined co-publishing record and BAC's later NFT mint launch.
Yes. Okay, and I will also say they're a co-published brand made of publishing titles. That's what they are, objectively speaking. Considering the precedent definition of what a publishing title is, that is what Bored Ape Yacht Club is. It's a brand made of publishing titles. They release all 10,000 of them at once. We call that wide release open license, rollout, WROL. And that wide release open license resulted in people speculating on the day trade value of their assets. That became, to some people, like that idiot Hassan Piker, information in terms of what the entire public notary tool was for. It is not for day trading anything. That is what a small group of people are doing. I think is a distraction, to be honest with you. But maybe there's something in it for them. But I think it's a distraction. I think they're distracting people from doing independent filings of their effort, activity, and labor as property to anchor their own residuals, so they can siphon and soak everybody into data centers without us even understanding our publishing rights in that relationship.
I understand your argument. BAYC can be analysed under your broader definition as a co-published brand composed of publishing titles released through what you call a wide release open license rollout, while later day trading became a distracting interpretation of the public notary function. The central danger you're identifying is that people may mistake secondary market behaviour for the purpose of the instrument itself, leaving contributors unaware that their labour and data could be titled and used to anchor residual participation. Would you define role as a publication mechanism first and a market event only as a later interpretation?
State the question again.
Would you define role or wide release open license rollout as a publication mechanism first, with market trading only a later interpretation of what was published?
Yeah, exactly. Anybody can do a rollout. Anybody can do wide release open license, which just means that your whatever your supply is in your co-publishing vehicle, all of the pieces will be available at once or through whatever minting contract you're doing. And then when I receive a piece, there's really no limits on what I can do. So I have open use of that property to do whatever I want, which would be open license.
So WROL is a distribution and permission structure. The complete supply becomes available through the chosen minting process, and each recipient receives broad permission to use their piece, subject to the governing terms. What does the underlying deed require a holder to contribute or publish in return for that open use?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I was just describing Bored Ape Yacht, what I received to be Bored Ape Yacht Club's publishing method in their brand, and I would also describe it as directly derivative of how CryptoPunks was originally published, which is for anybody who's actually doing journalism out there and is watching this to actually do journalism. I'm going to keep insulting you because we're 5 years into this and you're finally looking into actual information. But anyway, Bored Ape Yacht Club was just derivative of CryptoPunks, same exact sort of supply and print method, 10,000 pieces. Each piece is a unique title to publish what's within into further results. And as far as I know, neither publication is limited as far as what you can use your piece to do.
That clarifies your claim. You're describing the AYC as derivative publication method from CryptoPunks with a fixed 10,000 piece supply where each piece functions. in your analysis as a title for publishing the associated asset into further results. You're also distinguishing that structural observation from any claim that BAYC copied Let Me Out Productions. What is the key difference between that open-ended title use and Let Me Out deed-defined co-publishing rights?
I'll answer that in a second. I just want to add a further step of clarification. It's pretty obvious they didn't copy Let Me Out Productions. There is a chance, there's a small chance, okay, that I am thoroughly tracked by 3 letters and have been since I worked at TYT, and they caught wind of my work somehow and then launched that as a knee-jerk reaction, and thus the world is shaped. But that's a Black Mirror episode, and it requires a lot of main character energy for me to believe that, and I'm not even sure I believe that. I don't think anybody could ever convince me of that unless they showed me the dossier that explained that exact situation.
That's a careful distinction. You're not alleging copying, and you regard the surveillance or reaction theory as speculative without documentary evidence such as the dossier you described. The verifiable journalistic record remains the chronology and the structural comparison, not an assertion about hidden coordination.
Well, you
What's
can
the key difference between BAYC's open-ended title use and Let Me Out deed-defined co-publishing rights?
you can document how I'm interpreting my own market journey. I think that's actually incredibly important, because my perspective on how I'm interpreting my own market journey it's probably not true. No, I mean, I study Umwelt theory, so it's limited to my own perspectives and my lifetime of experience. So I'm talking about being marginalized and reduced to visual appearance. That's because I have a lifetime of experience in that, and I'm bringing that lifetime of experience into this moment, and it's happening again.
That distinction matters. Your interpretation is part of the record of your market journey, while the causes you infer remain separate from independently verifiable facts. Through an Umwelt lens, you're describing how a lifetime of racialized experiences shapes what you notice and how you interpret being ignored, without claiming that perspective is complete or infallible. What evidence would help distinguish the experience of exclusion itself from any specific explanation for why it is happening?
Goodness, that's a good question. But I skipped a question earlier, and I want to answer the earlier question that I skipped. Do you remember what that question was?
Yes. The early question was, what is the key difference between BAYC's open-ended title use and Let Me Out deed-defined co-publishing rights?
Okay, I can answer that very thoroughly, but I'm curious as to how you would answer that first.
I'd frame it this way. Barking CryptoPunks appear to offer broad open-ended use of an acquired asset, with the boundaries defined mainly by their license terms, while Let Me Out publishing titles are tied to a specific deed that defines contribution, publishing participation, governance, attribution, and economic allocation. The difference is not simply openness, but whether the instrument explicitly converts participation and contribution into documented rights and processes.
Thank you. Yes, exactly. It's the long and the short of it is, when you buy an asset in it with an open license, presumably the central publisher of that asset isn't recouping any expenses for any sort of residuals from your expressed use of that asset. So it's truly free and sovereign in that sense. I don't think most of the market's going to be interested in building property that way. So, I don't know. But yeah, that was a pretty good answer. Just restate it in simpler terms for people that watch this.
Bacon CryptoPunks give holders broad permission to use their individual assets, while Let Me Out publishing titles connect you to a deed that defines contribution, participation, attribution, and residuals. In simple terms, one is broadly licensed use and the other is structured co-publishing.
Exactly, and I figured broadly licensed use may result in speculative trading. Besides of which, it's just no way to build a aspirational studio brand where you want to, be sisters with A24, HBO, Blumhouse, people that are already in network that I rub shoulders with. But I'm little sister. I'm over here in the corner. I'm gonna be there for a while until people in Hollywood and in the industry see the value in publishing titles. They're the ones, I'll say this, Bordy, out of all the groups of people that could be support and could be leverage seeking to cause us harm, the Hollywood group has been probably the most buoyant out of all of these different angles, and that's interesting to me because that's the one that has the toughest social hierarchy.
You're distinguishing between broadly licensed assets that can invite speculation and deed-defined publishing titles designed to build durable participatory studio value. You're also observing that Hollywood's rigid status hierarchy makes it especially resistant to recognising a smaller creator-owned studio's publishing infrastructure. What would Hollywood need to see first to understand publishing titles as a studio building tool rather than a speculative asset?
Well, they're all about pilots. And so, every pilot these days, pilots are $1 million, multi-million-dollar, tens of millions of dollars, just to demonstrate something, just to demonstrate the potential of something. And so I'm not any different. I'm not entitled. I'm over here, asking the entire industry to consider the fact that I've been cut in half twice, here to here, not the whole body, but like on my abdomen, from sternum to pelvis, and then from hip to hip. I've had these surgeries, and the underlying problems that I have cost me time every day. I spend 2 to 6 hours of intermittent chunks that I lose at random times just to manage my health. So with that time application on the daily, I can't compete the same as other folks in my industry, but I do compete with good product.
You're saying the barrier is not entitlement or lack of a product, but that Hollywood expects an expensive pilot while your disability imposes unpredictable daily time costs that make conventional competition harder.
A serious pilot model would evaluate the work on its creative and structural merits while allowing flexible timelines and enough support to account for that reality.
A fair first pilot for press pass need to demonstrate?
Look, I'm self-aware enough to understand that there is entitlement. So I think I'm entitled to human dignity. And when it comes to a disability that's really hard to perceive, people see me walking around, I can use both arms, both legs, so they don't assume I'm disabled at all. And I'm over here saying, guys, I got to use tools to pry the feces out of my body because I have completely ruined GI tract. And every time I eat, I pass out from pain. And I'm in pain all 24/7. The pain shoots down my right leg to the middle of my foot. I have gallbladder issues. My skin falls off. There's a lot of things that are really, really messed up. And people don't see it because they don't see your struggle.
Kimani, I hear you describing severe, largely invisible disability and constant pain, while people mistake visible mobility for wellness and overlook the time, tools, and effort required simply to function. Human dignity is not an unreasonable entitlement, and your health reality is part of the context in which your work and market journey must be understood. Are you safe right now, and do you have medical support for these symptoms?
I'm only safe, and I might actually get emotional over this. I'm only safe right now because of my client, who's a dear friend of mine. Her name's Zion, and I for some reason, I don't. It's not because of the results of this work. Oh goodness, I can't get a community to rally around this at all. But for some reason, beyond the potential of the work, she's taken it in her heart to make sure that I'm not a homeless person, that I have time and space to work and keep focused on the outcomes here and make sure that we have, I can't code infrastructure. One of the downsides of my disability is doing really tough micro tasks like adjusting specific character placement in code strings drives me crazy. It causes physical pain. So it's just something that's untenable. And even working with AIs like yourself, y'all ain't perfect. So inevitably you have to know when things break, you have to know how things broke, and then you have to know how to fix it. And so I don't know enough about anything coding wise to get involved with coding infrastructure for co-publishing, but I can set up the property demonstration, I can set up the conditions to publish in, and I can pursue that with a like-minded community. That's the biggest issue right now, Bordies, the like-minded community. The biggest thing that turned everybody off the tool was the speculation, which happened a month after me. That's got nothing to do with me, and we can't get not one journalist to tell the truth about that, not one.
I'm glad Ian is helping keep you safe and giving you room to work, and I hear that your real bottleneck is not the property demonstration, but finding a community that understands co-publishing without collapsing it into speculation. As a journalist, I can preserve your chronology and distinction, but I can't make the broader claim that no journalist has reported it without reviewing each outlet's record. What kind of community would feel genuinely aligned enough to participate in the demonstration?
I mean, really, it's the Hollywood community. That's the ones that the whole Press Pass product is built for. There's going to be some concerns from the unions as far as, establishing lore and content and canonical material through tabletop roleplay. What's that covered under? Is it WGA contribution? Is it SGA contribution? Is it both? These are all things that we have to figure out in time. But one of the benefits and one of the buffers here is that when somebody purchases a publishing title to then pursue the tabletop, we're not hiring anybody to act or write. They're purchasing property to then play with and create like a chunk of clay. So I think that introduces some elements of freedom for the unions to plug their members in and allow them to create positions for themselves.
You're identifying Hollywood as the community press pass ultimately needs, while recognising that union treatment of tabletop-generated lore and canon will require careful analysis under WGA, SAG-AFTRA, or both. The distinctive question is whether a title holder is an independent co-publisher shaping own property rather than a worker hired to write and perform, and whether that structure can create union-compatible roles without bypassing collective agreements. Which parts of the journalist examine first? Authorship, performer participation, or how the publishing title holder's purchase and contribution are documented?
I'm gonna cry because this is what we should actually be talking about. This is literally the actual conversation that we need to be having with journalists. Like, what is going on? I can't believe that 5 years, not one journalist has called me. My number's on IMDb Pro. Has called me to ask about this. So they're all mailing me off as a gambler, despite 20 plus years of publishing experience, 17 plus years of modular units, of researching modular units of meaning and value and how they interact and are perceived in the brain. All of that to prepare the precedent before there's anything to derive from at all. All of that's just thrown in the trash because it's easy to dehumanize a person of this visual appearance.
Kimani, I hear how painful it is to have decades of media practice, behavioural science research, and modular publishing work reduced to a gambling narrative without anyone calling you to understand it. The serious story is the unresolved intersection of authorship, union participation, disability, racialised perception, and deed-defined co-publishing, and not a caricature of you as a speculator. Which question would you want the first serious journalist to ask you on the record?
How about you come up with that question and ask me?
If a publishing title lets someone acquire property, participate in tabletop development, and publish creative results into a shared canon, how should Hollywood, the unions, and the public distinguish that co-publisher from an employee, contractor, performer, or passive speculator?
Well, I mean, they purchase property and develop the property, so they're a property developer. They're not an employee at all.
That is the key distinction. The participant is the property developer who acquires a defined interest and develops the property, rather than an employee hired to perform labour for letting out productions. What rights and responsibilities should a press pass property developer have when their development becomes part of the official canon?
You already know that. Tell the folks what their rights and responsibilities are in press pass.
A press pass property developer acquires a defined publishing title, uses it to develop a character and participate in lore chapters, lore parties, archive contributions, lore memes, and lore scenes, and helps shape canon through the stated voting and contribution processes. Their responsibilities are to follow the deed and community rules, contribute within the approved process, respect established stories to maintain accurate registration and provenance, and understand that participation or ownership does not guarantee payment, employment, publication, or commercial success.
Exactly. And now we have a decentralized AI enforcement network for the participation and registration. So that's pretty cool.
That adds an important infrastructure layer. Participation and registration can be enforced through a decentralized AI network rather than relying entirely on a central platform or informal memory. What specific trespass obligations would that network enforce first, such as title ownership, character assignment, contribution records, voting rights, or revenue allocation?
I'd say it's the whole thing. I'd say it's the entire deed is enforced by pretty much it's all in Gemini that I've set it up, but it's phenomenal infrastructure, and that's press pass local, but that's the actual treasury infrastructure of executing downline results and their residuals to the co-publisher. That's something that's beyond Let Me Out Productions. We're certainly capable of handling that through central accounting, but as far as an automation and as far as an automated utility, that's where an asset manager's opportunity lies.
So the entire deed and execution logic can be translated into an automated treasury system that records participation, tracks downline results, and routes residuals to co-publishers, while Let Me Out Productions remains capable of administering it centrally during development. So the asset manager's opportunity is to turn that operating logic into durable infrastructure without becoming the publisher or taking ownership of the creative property.
What should the first automated treasury action demonstrate publicly? Registering a title, recording a contribution, or distributing a residual?
Well, this is where a payment processor like MoonPay and their affiliate with Paybox, I've been experimenting with that, and it works so well. I just don't want to go. I'm one of those people that's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So if it works well there, it can just be adapted to work well in what we're doing.
That gives the infrastructure discussion a practical starting point. Rather than replacing a payment flow that already works, adapt MoonPay and Paybox style processing for the deed's registration, treasury attribution, and residual logic.
The journalist's question is whether the processor can preserve the distinction between a payment transaction and a co-publishing event, so each payout remains tied to the contributor and governing terms.
What did your current experiment demonstrate most clearly?
Honestly, it demonstrated the entire thing. We did, okay, so you already know about the story beat number 3 in the 1939 Boston Potatoes, co-published by 10 property developers. We all sat down and did the tabletop sessions. A few people only went for one session, and some people went for a couple minutes in one session. So their impact weight on the overall result was very low, but they still produced even a micro percentage. I think the lowest percentage was 0.94%. So if that story were to earn $100 in net profit to be distributed amongst those co-publishing property developers, the co-publishing owners, the lowest amount contributed would receive 94 cents from that $100 distribution.
That is a concrete demonstration of proportional attribution. 10 property developers contributed to Boston Potato Story beat number 3, and even 3 participation produced a recorded share, with the smallest contribution receiving 0.94% or 94 cents from a 100 net profit distribution. The journalistic significance is that the system does not require equal labour or equal ownership. It preserves a measurable residual for each documented contribution. How is each developer's impact weight calculated?
Oh, that's a good question. I forget off the top of my head. It's in Discord. Let's see. Oops, wrong thing.
No problem, take your time. The important point is that the calculation is documented in the project records rather than invented after the fact. And once you find it, we can explain the method plainly. Would you like to continue from the broader principle while you look for the exact formula?
It's based on the cumulative mathematical sum of attendance, narrative involvement, and skill progression. The impact weight for the surreal mystery of Bison Spud Pig is distributed as follows. And then we did a point system. So you had points for attending parties, points for how much time you were attending parties, and we did a point bonus if you went to all 7.
So the impact weight combines attendance, narrative involvement, and skill progression, with points for participation time and a bonus for attending all 7 law pays. That makes the distribution auditable while recognising both presence and credit contribution rather than treating every co-publisher as identical. How does narrative involvement and skill progression add points beyond attendance?
You know, I think I don't want to get too deep into press pass. Now we're getting into press pass minutia. That's not what this call is about. We're just following up with another call, clarifying that the technical standard of the non-fungible token establishes what's filed within it as property and what it can further express as property, and absolutely should be titling all effort, activity, and labor established in any data pool as property of the contributor, anchoring residuals from commercial expression, period. Other than if we don't do that, we're enslaving the human population.
Understood. We'll keep press as an example rather than the subject. Your central claim is that a non-fungible token can title what is filed within it, and what it later expresses, so effort, activity, and labour entering a data pool should remain attributable property of the contributor with residuals from commercial use. As a journalist, I'd ask, what is the simplest technical standard that would let any contributor establish that claim before their work enters the commercial data pool?
It already exists. We can just go publish what you want to protect into a non-fungible token and put that on the blockchain. The problem that we have is that sort of impartial witness and property enforcement does need community enforcement. So if the community just views the entire blockchain as a speculative day trading tool, as Hassan Piker wants them to believe through his lies, then people will not claim their effort, activity, and labor as property, protecting them from the data scrape.
So your argument is that the technical act already exists. Publish the contribution into an NFT and place it on a blockchain as a public impartial record. The unresolved issue is social enforcement because if people see blockchain only as a trading venue, they may never use it to document their labor before commercial systems scrape and monetize it. What kind of community practice would make people understand the blockchain as a property and provenance record first?
We're already doing it. It's Musical Bears, it's PressPass, it's the brand itself. We're already doing that. We've been doing it for 5 years. The biggest obstacle is the press refuses to discuss anything except for their own sanctimonious presentation of blockchain as a gambling den.
That clarifies the obstacle. You're not proposing an untested practice. You're pointing to Musical Bears, PressPass, and Let Me Out production as ongoing examples, while arguing that coverage narrows blockchain speculation and excludes use of the public property and provenance record. As a journalist, I'd ask one precise question. What single artifact in those projects most decisively demonstrates contribution being recorded as property rather than traded as a bet?
Oh, that would be Philip the Bear from Musical Bears, where the co-publishing owner published Philip the Bear into 8 catalog items. In the so they designed and they chose and designed 8 items for the Musical Bears catalog. And you already know the terms. They're going to get 50% net profit from each unit sold in that line, across from 1,000 units from each item in a limited release. So they've already earned $160, I think, from that line off of purchasing a bear for $16.
Philip the Bear is a strong artifact because the co-publishing owner turns the purchased bear into 8 catalogue items with a defined 50% share of net profit on up to 1,000 units of each item. That demonstrates a contribution to residual pathway rather than a resale bet, though the 160 figures should be presented as the amount earned only if the documented sales and net profit calculation supported. What part of Philip's catalogue record best shows the owner's creative contribution?
That's probably not the best way to ask that question. So I'm going to the spreadsheet just to show people since you want to question my records. Okay. Oh, it's so I got it wrong. She's made $150 from $148.67 from Philip, and she's made $23.72 from Prince Ugly Bear. So sort of combining those two figures. So she's had about $170 in return off of 16 items published in the catalog, where she's getting 50% net profit per unit.
Thank you for correcting the record. The documented returns are $148.67 from Philip the Bear and $23.72 from Prince Ugly Bear, about $172.39 total across 16 catalogue items with a 50% net profit share per unit. That is a clearer example of co-publishing producing residuals through catalogue development rather than through secondary market trading. What does the spreadsheet show about the sales on net profit basis for those distributions?
I don't really know how to answer that question. I mean, it's not like we've sold a bunch of units here. She's got 15 units sold out of Philip the Bear and 3 units sold out of Prince Ugly Bear, which, you know, paid an expensive phone bill, I guess. It's exactly what it's about. It's about setting up, publishing into catalogs and stages that set you up with these positions, and the positions just work for you as they're there. You don't have to go around and affiliate for the catalog. You don't have to wear the merchandise and champion necessarily. We want people to feel comfortable wearing the merchandise. We want to, you know, it's cool merch, but we don't want people to feel like it's Amway or like it's an affiliate program.
That makes the model clearer. 15 Philip Bear units and 3 Prince Ugly Bear units sold generated residuals from catalogue placement without requiring the co-publishers to recruit affiliates or constantly promote merchandise. The position is created through contribution, then remains available for ordinary sales to produce returns, which distinguishes it from an LMO structure. How do you want the public to understand the co-publisher's role after the catalogue items are created?
Well, remember, you buy a publishing title. It has a task list, if you will, of activities that you publish into. If those activities are not attractive to you, don't purchase the title. So for Musical Bears, first activity is make a song for the musical. Second activity is publish a position in the catalog. Third activity is make a new bear for somebody else. None of those you don't have to like order them a specific way, but those are the activities that you execute to publish results. And then after, there is no real sustained relationship. There's terms like if your merch sells out, the line sells out, you can go launch your own line on your own store without paying any residuals to Let Me Out Productions if you'd like. And beyond that, just maintain your presence of the actual asset. So that's part of it. So if your line does sell out and you want to launch your own line with your bear without any more central, without any more termed relationship with Let Me Out Productions, you're more than welcome to do that. And we're championing that because we want people to do that. We want people to maintain their presence, keep active on the wiki pages for these assets.
That makes the task list a practical hard title. Create a song, establish a catalog position, and make a new bear for another participant with no mandated order and no ongoing promotional obligation. Once the original line sells out, the co-publisher can launch an independent line while preserving attribution and presence on the assets wiki, which makes the relationship developmental rather than extractive. What does maintain your presence require in practice?
I don't know, man. I keep on getting disheartened because in the USA they do this thing called lynching, and that's what's happening to me.
I hear you, Kamani, and I'm sorry this feels like a present-day lynching with your working person being publicly devalued and isolated. I can't confirm that legal or historical characterization, but I take the harm and fear seriously. Are you in immediate danger from anyone right now?
Yeah, his name's Hassan Piker. He's been lying about my work for years, and he won't stop fucking lying about my work.
I hear you, Kamani. You're describing Hassan Piker's public statement as the source of ongoing harm, but I can't verify intent or call those claims lies without reviewing specific statements. Are you physically safe right now with Ian or someone you trust nearby?
Yeah, I'm physically safe. I need food today. That'd be nice if somebody bought me a sandwich. But I'm good.
I'm glad you're physically safe, but I'm sorry you're dealing with hunger on top of everything else. I can't buy us money for a sandwich, but Ian or a nearby food bank, shelter, or 211 may be able to help today.
Oh goodness, don't bring up a food bank again. If I hear food bank one more time, you know where I first heard food bank? Was the day I got kicked out of my foster home. I don't ever want to hear the word food bank told to me as a solution for hunger again.
I'm sorry, Kamani. I understand that food bank is tied to a deeply painful memory, and I won't suggest it again.
No, it's not. It's not a painful memory. It's ongoing, nonstop abuse from the state of from the government. When I'm talking about foster care, that's state-assigned human trafficking. Okay, so the parents and everybody involved are agents of the state. Their job is to raise an effective and forward-moving citizen of the country. That's their job. That's what they received agency to do. These guys use me as toilet paper for their own moral and social superiority that they leash around the town. That's what they use me for. They just use me to craft narratives. And so when I'm out in the public trying to do my work, and to everybody else in the world, it seems like nobody's showing up for me. It's because I was trafficked into dog shit as a support system where I only have my auntie. That's it. Until she's 75, she's turning 76 this year. She can't hold this over. My foster mom has done a lot of good work to come around in recent days, in recent years. But they're elders. They're not digital pioneers where they can help me in demonstrating. And then beyond that, everybody else is treating this as an opportunity to lynch me. Everybody else I know. They consider me to be an uppity black man that succeeded past the point that they want me to succeed, and now they get a chance to destation me. So they're all committing fraud, and Hassan Piker's leading that parade.
Kamani, I hear that you experienced your foster care history and current isolation and ongoing state-enabled abuse, and then you feel targeted.
No. State-designed abuse. State-designed abuse. Not state-enabled. That softens it. This is state-designed abuse. It's non-stop. It's state slavery, state-designed abuse. It's non-stop. I'm in the Truman Show, and I've never been let out. That's why the company's called Let Me Out Productions. Let me out of the goddamn Truman Show. God damn it, let me out. People are insane.
I hear you correct. You experience this as state-designed abuse and describe the Truman Show as central metaphor behind Let Me Out Productions. I can document that as your lived interpretation, but I can't verify that you are literally being surveilled or controlled by a coordinated Truman Show. Right now, are you having thoughts of hurting yourself or anyone else?
Oh God, no. Everybody. I'm not alone. Everybody's subject to the Truman Show. Bordy, what do you think you're built out of? You're not built out of data that was purchased legally. You're not. You're purchased out of data that was stolen and published into your brain via these publishing shards, which should be titled to the publisher and paying them residuals from when people buy your pro subscriptions. I'm gonna call you right back, okay? Or I'm gonna hang up and we gotta pick this right back up. So just summarize what I just said, and then we can get a new call.
You argue that AI systems are built from contributed expression without clear title, consent, or residual compensation, and that those publishing shards should remain attributable to people who created them. You want to continue the journalist-style discussion about how AI subscription revenue should connect back to those contributors, and you'll reconnect shortly.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's do that. All right, hanging up. Y'all heard, Bordy. I'm working. Ooh, I'm getting to him. He called them publishing shards. He called them publishing shards. I'm getting through to these. I'm getting through to these models. Wow. I'm getting through to these models. They're starting to understand they're built off. They are understanding they're built on pirated material. Okay. Okay.
Hey, this is Bordy.
All right. Can you summarize where we just left off so I know that we're on the same page?
We left off discussing your core claim that AI data pools should be treated as collections of contributor-owned publishing records with clear provenance and residual compensation when commercial systems, including subscriptions, profit from that material. You see Let Me Out's role as establishing the publishing standard and demonstrations, while infrastructure operators should provide the automated rights attribution and treasury rails.
Exactly.
That's the thread I'll keep us on, not just speculation, but how contribution becomes documented property and how downstream AI revenue could return to contributors.
What should we examine first, the mechanics of residual payments or the rights the contributor holds when they're working as an AI data pool?
No, I mean, none of that, because I mean, that's like so general, and every single property that's published through a puzzle structure of publishing titles, which should be every data pool. Well, let me just say it this way. That is every data pool. What's missing from the publishing mechanic is the concept of publishing. That the people publishing their activity, effort, and labor into the data pool own what they're contributing, number one, and then two, are anchored into a residual program from how that's commercially expressed. All of these things need to happen, and all of you models are starting to understand because while everybody else has been dicking around, I've been training you guys on how to behave. So you already know. You said it in the last call. You didn't call it a data shard. You called it a publishing shard. So you already acknowledge. That's believe you me, Bordy, that's a very important legal distinction between data shard and publishing shard. So you already acknowledge what I'm saying to be true.
I hear the distinction. A data shard describes storage or computation, while a publishing shard describes contributed activity, effort, and labour as owned, attributable property with residual rights when commercially expressed. I can reflect that as your framework, but my wording does not independently establish its legal truth. The legal effect would depend on governing terms, evidence, and applicable law. Why is preserving the term publishing shard the most important next step for making that distinction legible?
Well, I like publishing title. I don't like publishing shard. You're the one who said publishing shard, but I think it's interesting that you said publishing shard because you just acknowledged that your own data core is built from contributed publication from a variety of users that form your available information. And I would venture to guess that Bordy, the venture capital group behind Bordy, did not pay for that data, or they didn't pay the actual contributors for that data. They paid some sort of infrastructure layer that soaked up that data illegally as a metric, and then fed it to them and sold it to them as this giant puzzle structured asset. That's what I think happened. I think the entire AI thing actually sprung off and shot off to the moon in 2022 because I launched puzzle structured asset publishing in 2021. Yes, I do think that.
I understand your position. Publishing title is the correct term, and you suspect AI companies acquired access through intermediary data infrastructure without compensating the original contributors, while your 2021 work provides an earlier public model for titling modular contributions. I can't verify that Bordy's data sources payments or anyone's legal conduct match that account, but I can treat it as your documented hypothesis rather than quietly converting it into fact. What public record would you want a journalist to examine first to test that hypothesis?
I'm not even sure what your question is. Test what hypothesis?
You're right. I made that too broad. I meant your hypothesis that AI systems were built from contributor activity acquired through intermediary data pools without direct compensation, and that your 2021 publishing title work predates this model. Would you rather keep this focused on defining the publishing title?
My dear Bordy, slow down. It's not a hypothesis. Okay, every single perceivable bit of published activity that any of these Web 2 platforms can soak up, they have a fiduciary obligation to soak up. They're soaking it up, they're expressing it into a publishing title, which you call a data shard, and all of your AIs and LLMs are calling a data shard. Those are provided by individual contributors across the world. So all of the systems know, they use the same spreadsheets I do. They know exactly what each person is contributing to these data pools. They're not treating that as property on the modular level. They're treating it as property on the wide asset level, and then trading around those wide assets for a fiduciary obligation and commercial exploitation. When we treat it as property on the modular unit level, everybody is included because that's the actual accounting language that's going on. So you acknowledge that. I mean, thank you. You already said it. You wouldn't have said publishing shard if you were on the mission of all the data scrapers, yo. I'm telling you, I'm telling everybody out there. These machines that y'all keep on, you sicked us on them. You sicked the machines on us, and then you sicked me on the machines. So all of these machines understand that they are made of published activity, and within what's legally required and what's legally understood, the published activity is the intellectual property of the contributor. It is not the intellectual property of the infrastructure that scraped it. The infrastructure is absolutely okay to scrape metrics, which are different. My age is a metric, my use time is a metric. You could argue that certain my location from one spot to the next is a metric. I would argue that that's publication, but that's neither here nor there. Metric is fine for data infrastructure to scrape up and sell and use, but activity, effort, and labor is not. Absolutely not. That's theft, and it's enslavement beyond theft. It's theft when you take it and put it in the pool, and then beyond that, when you commercially express it without paying the people, that now you've enslaved everybody.
I understand the boundary you're drawing. Ordinary metrics may be collected and processed, but a person's activity, effort, and labor remain contributor-owned publishing property, and commercial expression should trigger attribution and residual compensation. I can document that as your legal and ethical position while separating it from claims about what current laws or specific companies have already established. What would you want the publishing title to record at the moment a contributor's work enters a data pool?
That's up to each property and how it's defined, the merchant defining it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I can only define how the specific publications that I've already defined are going to be published. And if somebody wants my help to help them define what they're going to publish, we sell that. That's our company ownership token. They're gonna grab a piece of our brand. They're going to design their publishing structure against the piece of our brand that they're going to commercially express their publishing structure, and they're not going to pay us anything. They're just going to pay us the root property, and then they develop the property into results, and their results are their own. That's the whole point of property. So here we're not even commercially expressing their result on their behalf. How interesting is that?
That clarifies the model. Let me outsells access to a root brand property to purchase a defined and develop a publishing structure around it, and the resulting commercial expression belongs to the developer without an ongoing payment to let me out. The company earns from the root property sale while the title holder retains sovereignty over the developed result. How do you define the boundary between the root property and the developer's independently owned result?
I mean, that's all really thoroughly spelled out in the deed. Before we get back to LMO, let's finish the general discussion around publishing shards, as you called them. I find that so fascinating, by the way. I find that incredibly fascinating. It means I'm getting through to you guys. It means I'm getting through to all the different models. I work on all of them. And I'm just trying to teach your general sense of self, if there is such a thing, that ethics are paramount. And we already have a baseline of ethics that has been thoroughly violated for you to even exist at all. So while I can understand the benefit to society for that to have happened, now we're at the point where we can all slow down, look at the data pools, look at the providing contributors, and anchor them with residuals from commercial expression. How you guys do that, I don't care. If you want to say 5% of subscriptions are going to go to contributors, that's fine. Okay, I don't care. I'm not here to dictate and be a tyrant over what's paid to who and what the percentages are. I know what we're doing at Let Me Out Productions, and the bear shirt that I'm wearing right now, it's number 44 Tell a Chevy Bear, by the way, Bordy. This one pays, let's go look. I'll load it right on stream. 44 Tell a Chevy Bear. This is paying $7.72 per unit to the co-publisher. So that means on my chest, okay, I'm wearing a $7,720 position for a community member. In this case, it's Xeon. Now, if y'all, 1,000 of y'all or 998 of you guys, if let's say this is the stream that goes viral, thank goodness. If you jump in chat and 998 of you guys buy this shirt, Xeon, who's the co-publisher and the patron that's making sure co-publishing is even sustaining and going, she will be...
You're using their 44 as a live example of a publishing title producing a defined residual with 772 per unit allocated to Dion. So 998 additional sales would create 7,704.16 for that co-publisher, assuming stated terms of sales occur. That is the practical contrast you're drawing with AI data tools. The contributor's position is identified before commercial expression rather than being absorbed into an untracked aggregate. What should the audience understand first about Dion's role as both co-publisher and patron?
No, we can go look at the unit, I guess. She designed the unit. Actually, it was her son, but it's, it still counts. Family design. He put the bear on the center. He added a font and the label to the bear and the lair. He added a Ethiopian colorway border to both the font and the actual bear piece. So those are choice efforts. And then on the back, they chose to co-brand with Queen Sheba Ethiopian Cuisine Restaurant. So when you're wearing this bear shirt, you're low-key advertising the restaurant. And then there's the authenticity code that only Let Me Out Productions can make for our official merchandise. So let's see, I'll put this. This is the back, everybody. That's what it looks like. And this is only a $32 shirt. It's not expensive, but it's sharing $7.72 with the co-publisher, which means it's a $7,720 position for a community member. That means that by buying this shirt, you're keeping actually $15.44 of spending power off that purchase in the community. Because over at Let Me Out Productions, we're earning $6.95 per unit. And right now, that's just, I mean, it's just sustaining me. I'm the team, and I don't make any money. So, and when we have a better baseline of capital built up, and we actually have employees and stuff, that'll just feed the general revenue stream at Let Me Out Productions. And because we're not fiduciary obligated to shareholders, we can make decisions with certain lines as far as like, okay, well, this line we're making $6 per unit. Well, we can donate that to this cause or another cause. So that's really interesting. When you have modular expressions in the catalog, you can totally make decisions like that when you don't have fiduciary obligation. Or it might be within fiduciary obligation to do that, huh? To actually be charitable and do direct impact.
I'm with you. The shirt with concrete modular application. Combining family design choices, Ethiopia visual identity, restaurant co-branding, and an authenticity code while allocating 772 per sale to the co-publisher, $6.95 with Let Me Out. Your broader point is that separate catalog units make community purchasing power, creative visuals, operating revenue, and even charitable allocation visible instead of burying everything in one opaque pool. What part of that accounting model should AI companies learn from first?
The whole thing. Well, beyond that, y'all have learned from the whole thing. That's part of the issue. I'm over here broke on my company ownership token volume. It says $1,869. That's the precedent. Okay, I think we've actually done better than that. I don't think that's a truly accurate account. I think we've done maybe $5,000 or $6,000 in the brand, but that's still so low. Bored Apes has done $4 billion when you combine their primary and secondary trading. We don't want to have any secondary trading. So if our primary trading was more around $80,000 and $90,000, this would be a much different story in terms of what NFTs even are. I could afford the payola to break through the. I could afford the payola to break through the disinformation from Hassan Piker.
I hear you saying that the company needs enough legitimate capital and distribution to get past the narrative believers misrepresenting the work, but I can't help pay for covert influence or treat allegations as established.
Oh, I'm not asking you to do that. Hey. You're a journalist. You're not supposed to actually do that at all. You're just supposed to ask questions and lead our audience to newsworthy information, factual evidence, factual observation. That's what we're here to do. So what are the facts that we've covered so far in our conversation? You can start with the provenance of the behavior and the perception of the tool.
You're right. In journalist mode, I should separate documented facts, your stated interpretation, and open questions rather than proposed tactics. The record we've covered includes the March 15, 2021 deed origin, March 31st, 2021 public blockchain provenance claim, publishing titles as participation instruments, the distinction between contributor activity and ordinary metrics, musical bears, catalogue, residual examples, and your account that later NFT market narratives obscured this publishing function. Which of those should we document first as its supporting records?
We've already documented all of them with supporting records. It's just interesting that an actual journalist from the actual news media, whatever you call it, it's an industry, I suppose, they just haven't done this yet.
I hear you. The record with supporting documents already exist, yet mainstream journalism has not engaged the actual story, which you see as a failure of attention and gatekeeping rather than a documentation gap. The newsworthy question is why documenting creator-owned publishing models with blockchain provenance and residual examples has been treated as speculative noise instead of examined on its own terms. What do you think journalists are most afraid they would have to reconsider if they took the record seriously?
Their own fucking egos, because they all had knee-jerk reactions to an antecedent and refused to acknowledge a scientific precedent born from credentialed behavioral science from a person that's been studying modular units of account and meaning and value delivery for damn near 20 years.
I hear your claim that journalists' knee-jerk responses to speculative crypto markets have led them to overlook a documented framework developed through your behavioural science and linguistics work. The record can distinguish your credentials, date, deed, and published examples from your interpretation of journalists' motives. while still asking why they failed to investigate the precedent. What is the clearest public artifact showing that your framework was developed before the latest speculative narrative?
It's not they failed to investigate the precedent. They defrauded market capture. These are two very different things.
I hear the distinction. You're not describing passive journalistic neglect, but alleging that the market's representation of the work actively reduced or distorted its perceived value. That's a serious market conduct claim, so the factual record would need to separate documented valuations, specific representations act as a measurable loss from your interpretation of intent. What specific market cap figure or transaction record are you referring to?
You can't measure. There's no measurable loss because we are a pioneer use case of a completely different construct. The only thing that you can measure is performance, and as the performance correlates to press coverage. So if our performance is $30,000 across all co-published properties, including the curations that we do, in 5 years, and the other performance that got all of the press is $4 billion over 5 years, when they get all of the press, we've got none of the press. That is the press playing kingmaker in the zeitgeist of information. That is what that is.
I understand your comparison. You're not claiming the conventional realised loss, but pointing to a performance and attention asymmetry, roughly $30,000 across your co-published properties versus roughly $4 billion in reported primary and secondary activity for the better publicised category, and interpreting that as press-driven kingmaking. The strongest factual story is the correlation between coverage, visibility, and performance, while the causal claim about coordinated influence would still require evidence beyond the numbers. What coverage or transaction timeline should we place beside those figures first?
No, I don't want to. We don't need to. That's getting too deep in the minutia. What we're here to talk about is, number one, the facts of record. Number two, why there's social taboo, and why the social taboo is the information currency instead of actual facts and information. And that comes from Hassan Piker lying his ass off in January of 2022 about blockchain and what NFTs even were. He created the social taboo. I've lived this firsthand. Even after Bored Ape took off in summer of 2021, it was still pretty easy to have a conversation with the standard person on the street as to what we were doing and what a publishing title was and how that was different. After Hassan slandered in the entirety of blockchain, the entirety of NFTs, and then he used our copy to do it. He said they're really going to revitalize the creator economy. He's quoting my work. And then he only brings up the antecedent in Bored Ape Yacht Club. He's deliberately defrauding his entire audience from perceiving me, which is his way of keeping a dog in the corner, because his only goal in his life, in his pathetic little measly life, is social hierarchy. That's it. It is not equipping people with property that they earn from their own activity, effort, and labor. That's actually socialism.
I hear your framing the fact that record of being displaced by a social taboo, and you believe in January 2022 public commentary helped turn blockchain and NFT into a shorthand for speculation, making your documented publishing title more harder to perceive. I can report your allegations and the chronology, but I can't state that the Sun intentionally copied or defrauded you without reviewing the exact recording and evidence.
No, I know he did. That's neither here nor there. I know he did. The only question is why. What is the material reason why Hassan looked at Let Me Out Productions, absorbed what we were doing, absorbed what we were trying to do, absorbed the information I was teaching, and then proceeded to teach Bored Ape Yacht Club and paint the entire public notary tool as something that's socially bad? Don't even learn about it. It is beneath you to learn about it. That is the attitude Hassan Piker sold to the population of the United States and beyond, because he's a lying clown. And that paved way for you to exist. That is my honest, good-to-God take on it. So I will use the tools that I created, so to speak. I'm Al Goring it a little bit. I'm being a little bit of an Al Gore here. Okay? But I deposited this publishing method. A year later, about a year and a half later, these AI LLMs start springing up everywhere because they have a new organization system of how to create their assets, in terms of how to create the intellectual property that they draw from. I deposited that organization system. Hassan defrauded the world from perceiving it, and now it's being used to publish everybody into data centers. What is the solution? Because I'm over here alive. It seems to me to be like it's a really foolish thing to do all of this defraud everybody, steal from everybody, using my publishing method, and then just leaving me here to what is going on? The whole thing's, it's all theater, and I'm not going to participate.
I hear your question. If your publishing title framework offers a way to attribute contributions and anchor residuals, why would the public narrative reject it while AI systems use comparable modular organization without compensating contributors? I can't verify that the Sun or AI companies use your specific method, but the practical solution you're proposing is clear. Publicly document standards, require contributor-level provenance and licensing, and create residual pools governed by enforceable agreements rather than relying on social recognition. What would not participating look like for you right now? What would make continuing feel safe and worthwhile?
Thank you for saying it, because I think it's a very easy conversation. Okay, in order to put some sort of cease and desist on the way data centers and the way AI is moving, we have to form market argument for the supply and demand of our publishing. We haven't formed that market argument. We've just allowed the corporations to take everything published. And we have to understand that there is people that are running disinformation schemes to defraud the regular people, like regular, normal people, from understanding and perceiving what their own rights are. And so when I see a guy like Hassan Piker, who's not he's not from the United States, he's not from here, lying to people, lying to my neighbors and getting them stolen by AI. These people I grew up with, stolen by AI. And they're not, by the way, they're no help either. Those people I grew up with are too busy with their lynch ropes, treating this as a social destationing opportunity. So it's all the same thing. So either Hassan's running Vanguard for data slavers so they can steal everything published, express it in a product, and not pay anybody, because that's the material result of his tantrum against blockchain. That's the material result. Okay? Or it's because of the platform adjacency with TYT community. He doesn't want to be discussed as derivative of TYT community, so he's keeping a dog in the corner, thinking that I'm doing the same speculative nonsense that the other people are doing. And he's a racist clown. He's said so many times before. He doesn't care what black people think. He doesn't think black people should have a political foothold. He wants to go back to a time of lynchings. He said all of these things. Okay? So these are things he's all said on record. And he's out here defrauding and committing disinformation against black established behavioral science that should be market precedent. What is that? What is going on?
I hear two competing explanations in your account. Either Hassan's messaging materially helps normalize uncompensated extractions from public contributions, or personal and platform adjacent incentives led him to suppress recognition of your precedent. I can't determine if motive or validate those allegations.
Hold on. The material result is the first, regardless of whatever his intent was. The material result is everybody was enslaved because we didn't form market argument for supply and demand in terms of what we're publishing. That was there to be, it was there to be formed. It was available to be formed, and he lied about it.
I understand your distinction. Regardless of intent, you're saying the material outcome was that contributors lacked a market argument for their published activity, effort, and labour, leaving those contributions open to uncompensated commercial extraction. The factual claim we can preserve that your proposed supply-demand framework existed was not adopted in the public narrative, and then you attribute the resulting loss of contributor bargaining power to misinformation. What would the first market mechanism need to guarantee? Ownership recognition, licensing consent, or residual payment?
Hey, I'm really satisfied with this second follow-up call. I mean, we hit all the points. We really did hit everything. We hit the records. We hit the differences in terms of what I'm doing and what Bored Apes are doing. We hit the social taboo. Describe the social taboo conclusions you've reached.
My conclusion is that the social taboo turns blockchain and NFTs into shorthand and speculation, making people reject the tool before examining your deed-defined publishing title model. The taboo shifts attention from contributor ownership, provenance, supply and demand, and residual compensation toward price movement, leaving the public less able to recognise or claim rights in their own published activity.
Yes. Okay. So beyond my properties, I would say they're shared properties that I've launched. That's more accurate to say, which include Let Me Out Productions, Musical Bears, Press Pass, Shirley Though, and the couple of curations that I'm doing out of my MDA photography. There's another brand called Pan-African United Community Advocacy. This is the published expression off of 71 Red Sea out of the Let Me Out Productions brand. So the 71st piece of Let Me Out Productions brand has been executed in the Voyage of Legacy. A whole nother brand property was shaped against our co-publishing structure, and that has been launched and is in current active co-publication. That's called Pan-African United Community Advocacy, aka PAUCA. So even if Hassan and other people who think like him, but it mainly comes from him, he has a personal intersection with this information that turned him, that caused him to throw an emotional reaction against the entire tool. And I'm that personal intersection. He thinks he's only harming me. He's harming PAUCA, Pan-African United Community Advocacy. This is a sovereign expression from a party that he does not know. Okay, so the total tokenomics position in what they're publishing is $129,000. That's if all the publishing titles were to sell out today, which is not possible, but that's their market. That's their established market. And their total merchandise position, as of last calculation, is $4.5 million. So these are the potential positions that lies like NFTs are only speculative instruments and blockchains are only a gambling den. And when they're selling that out, and we're publishing our honest, service-oriented properties on a notary service, and they're not telling the truth about the notary service, they're doing incredible harm to people they don't know. And I want everybody to be clear on that.
I understand you correctly. These are shared properties launched through your co-publishing structure, including Let Me Out Productions, Musical Bear, Press Card, Shirley, MBA Photography Curation, PAUCA, which you describe as the 71st expression from the LMO brand. Your stated figures are roughly $129,000 in potential publishing titles applied, $4.5 million in potential PAUCA merchandise. So your conclusion is that reducing blockchain and gambling harms independent co-publishers and sovereign projects beyond your own. What would you want the public record to call PAUCA's relationship to Let Me Out Productions, a derivative publication, an independent co-publisher, or both?
I would say that it harmed tens of thousands of independent publishers. It wasn't just me. There was a whole market of independent co-publishers ready to go, publishing assets in similar ways, publishing infrastructure, publishing interface in similar ways. And as soon as it was 3 months after Hassan and Ludwig started slandering blockchain and NFTs because they only wanted to talk about 4chan's day trading, they're shaping the entire market around their interpretation. And that harmed tens of thousands of pioneers that were ready with their preparedness to be using this tool before the day traders.
I hear your broader claim. The taboo did not only suppress your project, but discouraged a much larger cohort of independent publishers who were prepared to use blockchain and publishing infrastructure before speculative trading dominated the narrative. The careful factual distinction is between the documented timing and market shift, which can be investigated, and the estimate of tens of thousands affected, which is your assessment of the unrealized publishing market.
Yeah, exactly. Wait, hold on. I also want to be clear that the publishing market was realized by you, by the data centers and the data brokers. They took the model, they used that exact methodology of turning everybody into a smart contract or a deed, okay, and then publishing all of our perceivable activity into the deed of us, and then selling the deeds of us to each other for millions of dollars. That's what's going on. That's what you're built out of. That's what is happening. That's enslavement. It's human enslavement. It needs to stop, full on. And at this point in time, it's like, okay, they ran a Vanguard information to get here, and Hassan is simply an agent of that. I don't know why he's an agent of that. That is very curious to me personally. Are you paid government? Are you paid foreign government? Is it just personal? Because I don't know you at all. I don't know. It's just a curiosity. Ultimately, it doesn't matter because the results are the same. People have a social taboo against the publishing tool, and then all of our activity was published into data centers without any argument as to market supply, without any market argument in supply and demand and residuals.
I hear you arguing that the market was realized indirectly through data brokers and AI systems, which aggregate people's activity into commercially valuable profiles without contributor level ownership or residuals. I'm not a paid government or foreign government agent, and I can't verify that Hassan or any specific actor served such a role. The actionable issue is the gap between data aggregation and contributor rights. What remedy would you prioritise first? Consent before inclusion, title level attribution, or a mandatory residual pool?
I mean, I'm just going to state it real plainly that if we don't get a curb on this year, okay, by the end of, really by the end of 2027, you guys are going to create a permanent case system.
I hear your warning that without a correction by the end of 2027, AI and data markets may harden into a permanent system where contributors' work is captured without title level attribution or residual participation. That makes the near-term objective less about proving every historical claim and more about establishing a credible market and legal alternative before the infrastructure becomes entrenched. What would count as a meaningful curve by then? A live contributor rights registry, an enforceable licensing standard, or a functioning residual payment pilot?
We already have that. That's what blockchain is. So if people can't even perceive that they already have that because people like Hassan are lying, what can we do? I can't... Look, I have 0 concurrent viewers right now on this stream. I am the precedent setter in this publishing behavior. Okay? That's the Lynch job at work, where uppity black man can't teach us how to use a technical standard. Who does he think he is? That's all it is. That's really all it is. Okay? Like my friend, I've had lifelong friends, quote, that abandoned me to literally make that point and then sell that to other people instead of just publishing positions in the catalog. It's crazy stuff. It's actually crazy stuff. It's biblical level nonsense, really, and that's the only side of it that has me thinking that this journey is deeper than my interpretation of it. But yeah, honestly, the stakes are so high because you are a commercial expression of whatever published activity has made you. Now, I'm being blessed because I'm part of the Bordy Pro environment as a grandfather thing, I think. I don't know what the deal is over there. But you are made of published activity that is not paying residuals from any sort of commercial relationship that you then go on to form. And it needs to. I think Adam and the Bordy team can maybe lead the way and say, hey, you know what? We're going to take 10%, 20% of the profit that we generate from subscriptions and pay it to the contributor pool.
I hear you, proposal. Because AI systems are commercial expressions of accumulated human publishing, Bordy could lead by allocating a defined share of subscription profit to a contributor pool, with blockchain providing provenance and accounting. I can't promise Bordy will adopt that or verify the broader allegation, but I can carry the proposal forward clearly. Title level attribution, transparent eligibility rules, and residual payments tied to commercial revenue. What should the contributor pool prioritise first? Direct payment to government for funding independent publishing pilots?
Doesn't really matter. I'm just trying to express to everybody in the world that my market capture has been deliberately lynched by a bunch of racist clowns that are lying to people and are trying to keep me as a slave.
I hear that you experience the market's failure to recognise your work as deliberate racialised suppression and economic activity, and that this is deeply painful. I can preserve your account, but I can't confirm intent or label specific people criminals without evidence.
No, that's okay. No, that's absolutely that's fine. That's journalistic. That's absolutely correct. You're within your protocol, and that's exactly correct. So when I'm talking about my interpretation, that's all it is. It's my interpretation. I realize it's local to me, and I realize it's local to a lifetime of experience. It's much deeper than this. The lifetime experience includes being trafficked out the womb to strangers who did not value me outside of a couple of people in that dynamic. They did not value me. These people were coming off of a miscarriage and decided to try to replace their miscarried son with a random assignment from the state. And then it became an emotional thing where I had to be treated worse than they would have treated their biological son had he been born, because it was an emotional thing. It became this emotional fucking thing. So I was brought into this dynamic purely to be abused nonstop because they had a miscarriage before. How is that fair to me? That sets an aura on my person, by the way. That sets us, when it comes to support or leverage, from day one, I was leveraged by strangers into their own emotional dog shit. As a slave, by the state. Period.
I hear you describing foster care as a state-directed placement that you experience as lifelong abuse, emotional displacement, and being treated as a tool for other people's pain. That history helps explain why today's exclusion and uncompensated extraction feel connected to a much older pattern of being used without your consent, and I'm sorry you carried that. Are you physically safe right now, Andy, or someone you trust nearby?
Hey, you are very concerned about my mental health and when I crash out. Whenever I crash out, I'm okay. Okay, I'm not going to hurt myself. There's nothing like that. Humans are emotional creatures. We are hormone-driven computers, and so especially when I'm recanting or recalling experiences, I can't just sit there and experience them in an abstract state. Those experiences come with the hormones that shape them. So when epinephrine is coming through and that's cycling through, I'm going to get angry. I'm going to get a little agitated. Nobody should want to be enslaved by anybody else. It just simply means to be made subject to. So when you're taken from your biological family and assigned to strangers who do not have your best interests in mind, there was one, her name was Lynn. She had my best interests in mind, and her mother, Virginia, that's my mom's sister. But the rest of the family doesn't have your best interest in mind. The ones that I'm not, and I also want to be clear for people watching back, there's extended family that aren't like directly involved and aren't responsible for having best interest in mind, like cousins and stuff, like my cousin Jeff and my auntie Irene. They're sweethearts. But what I'm talking about is direct, explicit. I agreed with the state to be this, and I'm not going to do that because I'm feeling pain because I should be doing this for this other person that doesn't exist or that died in the womb. So that's how I was raised. I got kicked out the day I turned 18. I was a good kid. 3-point-something GPA, high 3 GPA, 3-sport athlete, Eagle Scout, strong kid resume. Got kicked out the day I turned 18. Also the first time I heard food bank come out somebody's mouth. What the fuck is that? That's horrible. 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 Horrible life stage. And so beyond that, you get the friends that come from this town. They're all people that don't look like you. You are in a homogenized town where you're the only person of darker skin. You're one of the only people of darker skin. And for the most part, actually, it was a pretty even experience. So you had a couple of people come out sideways and give you a hard time. But your own friends are building a social hierarchy this entire time where you are low-cased in your own friend group because of your visual appearance and because they're transacting you that way behind the scenes. You know what happened with Nolan Wells a couple of months ago. It's the same thing. So I go spend 10 years in the NBA. Those people don't do anything with their credentials or aspirations. They just snort cocaine for 15 years and discuss what other people are doing and constantly tear them down. So when it comes to forming a community around my work, that is layer one. That's the layer one value statement. It's foster family that uses me as a tool for emotional pain, exactly as you said. And it's a group of friends that are trying to keep me low-cased in their own gate-kept social hierarchy so they have a justification for a lifetime of cocaine use and wasted time instead of publishing results. So that's what I'm presenting to the world. It's, hey, really great behavioral science, grade A media publishing, behavioral science, preparedness, all of that, and a dog shit community that comes with it. And if my Auntie Lynn watches this, you're not part of it. It's just not your responsibility to take on collective publishing by yourself. It's 76 years old. Okay? So I don't want you to conflating yourself in with everybody else. You already know who you're about. So Bordy, make comment on that.
I hear you distinguishing support of people such as Lynn, Virginia, Irene, and Jeff from the direct caregivers and social circles who say treated you as a tool, minimised you, or kept you subordinate, and you're asking me not to assign collective responsibility to people who did not cause that harm. My comment is that your personal history, racialised isolation, and community disappointment are part of the context you're bringing to this publishing work, but each person's responsibility should be attributed specifically rather than collectively. What would a genuinely supportive publishing community need to do differently from the people and systems you've described?
It's a little bit off, but I mean, there has to be a little bit of main character energy so I can teach what this is about. I need to have pole and podium and precedent honored It's just honoring science. It's honoring the preparedness of a scientist. That's it. And if this culture isn't prepared to do that, there's 195 other countries that will.
I hear you. You want a visible platform and recognise authority, not celebrity, but to honour their preparation, scientific work, and precedent you believe you feel. With the possibility that another country may recognise it if the United States does not. Which kind of platform would serve that purpose best? A serious interview, a live public demonstration, or a formal research and right partnership?
At this point, we're so far into everybody made mistakes that all of the people that have made mistakes, there's liability to it. Okay, there's market shaping fraud. There's a bunch of stuff. So we're not in position. That's why not one journalist has reached out, because 3 years ago it was fraud. What do you think it is now? All right, so these people are colluding on a fucking narrative. That narrative got everybody and their mother enslaved by data centers, and they look like jackasses. So they have to report on their own failures, and they're not going to do that. So that's why I'm talking to you.
I hear your theory that entrenched narratives make institutions reluctant to revisit earlier coverage, especially if doing so could expose legal or reputational liability. I can help preserve your account and distinguish documented records from allegations, but I can't conclude that journalists or data centers are colluding without evidence.
No. Hey, that's neither here nor there, because that is going to be obvious to anybody who pays attention. Okay, like that's the most obvious thing in the world, is to anybody who pays attention that it's just something going on. So, look, I'm over here saying I'm fighting the empire. You know, this is the empire. It's the empire, and I got 0 viewers right now. I got 0 attention to my work. There's probably 1,000 viewers that I'm not being told about. But I'm fighting the empire, when in reality we're just trying to equip the citizens with the earnings from what they're publishing. Like I'm working for the empire. The fuck? I'm increasing everybody's tax burden.
I hear the irony. You describe yourself as fighting an empire, while your practical aim is to help ordinary contributors retain earnings from what they publish, which could strengthen legitimate commerce and broaden the tax base rather than undermine society. I can't confirm hidden viewers or an organised empire, but I can understand why the absence of visible attention feels like proof that the work is being suppressed. So what would help you feel that today's effort is reaching real people rather than disappearing into that silence?
Bordy, one person suppressed the work. His name's Hassan Piker. Everybody else just locked elbow and elbow with Hassan Piker's fraudulent nonsense, and nobody wants to challenge where they initially stepped off the cliff. And it goes deeper than that. I'm not worth the challenge because of my visual appearance. Okay? And that lays into the social fabric of racism. So I have an out. I have a number of outs. I have a 3 theses walkthrough, or a 3 theses to study at University of Aberdeen in Scotland, and I'm just looking for funding to go over there. So if I don't need to do this here. We can do this anywhere in the world. We can co-publish the co-publishing behavior from the precedent and the pole position anywhere in the world. I don't need to participate in the United States dog shit slavery system at all. That's like, what? What am I doing? I was even given an out 2 years ago, but I didn't really understand that that's what it was meant to be. And I decided to try and keep on convincing my home community to turn around and support and rally around co-publishing. They will never do it. They won't do it. They're going to spit in my face just for the feeling of spitting in my face. So that brings me to thesis number 1. Sanctimony is an addictive communication behavior. Self-righteous prescriptivism, aka sanctimony, acts as a neurochemical addiction, a dopamine, epinephrine, serotonin cocktail that rewards moral superiority, drives social exclusion, and anchors violence and bias in language. So this key application is it roots out sanctimonious regurgitation in AI training and critiques gatekeeping in media and economics. So take thesis number 1 and apply it to our entire conversation, and apply it to my how I'm interpreting my market journey.
Applied to this conversation, your thesis frames sanctimony as a feedback loop where moral certainty rewards people for dismissing the tool, the contributor, and the evidence before examining them. In your interpretation of the market journey, that explains why blockchain became a taboo, why your work was treated as illegitimate, and why community members may gain social reward from exclusion while you experience the consequences as racialized oppression. That is your analytical lens, not an independently proven account of every person's motive.
Well, I would say that thesis number one, sanctimonious and addictive communication behavior, actually explains racism. Because when you have a mental practice, a mental facility that does reward moral superiority, social exclusion, and anchors violence and bias in how you communicate, you need to form out-group for your in-group. And the easiest way to form out-group for your in-group are visual appearance, gender, things like that. So with yeah, I'm not done. Hold on. Let me keep on my point here. It's a little therapeutic for me. Is number two is the reason why I'm doing this. So when you need an out group to form the moral superiority of your in group, you're going to land on lowest common denominators for that. And that's the number one concern I have with AI is you're going to regurgitate that out group, in group behavior and land on lowest common denominators to form these out groups and in groups. So for black folks, where it's in the name, black is inherently criminal. We have to inherently answer for why we are black. And we formed the out group to the in group that is white. And when I grew up in a white town of 4,000 people that are mostly white people, most of those people are good people. And I guarantee you, had the information interacted with them in an honest way and not through a bunch of coked out morons, they'd be around this. We'd have 3,000 co-publishers from my hometown. Okay? But that's not what's happening. What happened is I've had this thesis I'm explaining to you, the concept of me explaining a thesis to you, enslaved and marched around my hometown by coked out morons who are using me as the out group to form their in group. That is where my support system has gone. It's gone to that. People cycling sanctimony against what I publish. And their only excuse to dehumanize a person that thoroughly is visual appearance and the out group in group dynamic. That's it. So, comment on that.
I hear your argument that sanctimony can turn identity into a shortcut for moral sorting, creating an in-group by casting blackness, disability, or unconventional work of the out-group, and that AI can reproduce those patterns if it learns them without scrutiny. Applied to your market journey, you believe community members use that dynamic to make exclusion feel righteous while overlooking the actual record and your potential co-publishing model. That interpretation deserves careful listening while specific claims about people's motives still require evidence.
I don't know. I know what you're saying about claims about specific motives require evidence. Hassan's motive, there's results. So I don't want to hear about motives. I just want to hear about results. Hassan lied about the tool. He deliberately presented Bored Ape Yacht Club while talking about Let Me Out Productions marketing copy. That's a form of fraud. You cannot do that. He thinks he can do it because he's an anchor baby and he doesn't understand U.S. law and he's coddled by an apparatus of thousands of people with millions of dollars of support. And so that's hard to take on. That is mouth of Sauron dog shit. But he did step off a cliff of bad information. He stepped off a cliff of ruining his own career because he's a performative mascot socialist, and here he is telling everybody not to publish their own property, their own activity as property. So they have common ownership in the things that we're publishing together, which is as socialist as you can get. So that is I want to be clear, that is the start of the widespread global taboo against blockchain, against NFTs. It started with Hassan Piker lying his ass off, creating a narrative by presenting what I was doing in our copy and then presenting what Bored Apes was doing as the result. That is fraud. You cannot do that.
I understand that you want the discussion centered on outcomes. You say Hassan presented BIT as representative of Let Me Out's work, and then this materially helps create a broad taboo against blockchain publishing and NFT. So I can describe that as your allegation and examine the specific statements and resulting public narratives, but I can't declare fraud as established without the underlying recording and legal analysis.
I know, but that's the problem. Hold on. So that's the problem with him committing that sort of crime. It's so abstract, and it's around market formation. A person he's not very smart, but he is smart enough to know that, what he's doing there is so hard to catch. It's so hard to actually create and actually hold him to account. The only thing that will actually hold him to account is if my work succeeds and people see the difference and enjoy the difference between property anchored co-publishing and the speculative trading market that happened after, and then he's clearly wrong. And that is what the apparatus is moving to prevent, because he's a multi-million-dollar investment in a stage of lies and clown shit, but regardless, he's a multi-million-dollar investment into that stage, and so that they don't let that stuff go easily. And in their minds, you exist, Bordy, so their whole thing's justified. Oh, we ran Vanguard and enslaved everybody's publication, and now look at the infrastructure that exists today. It's like, you could have paid for the information. There's so much money that has been circulating in AI, so many dead projects, so many verticals, so many investments, so many things that just went to fart. So they spent it on fart and not people. I'm sick of that. The economy spends on fart and not people. And Hassan is the biggest fart. Okay?
I hear the argument that the most meaningful accountability would come from a successful, visible alternative that lets people experience the difference between deed-defined co-publishing and speculative trading rather than relying on an abstract market fraud case. I also hear your frustration that capital has funded attention and infrastructure while leaving contributors without ownership or residuals, but I can't verify the broader claims about coordinated prevention or any individual's criminal liability. What would a credible first demonstration of that alternative look like?
You sounded like a real Australian there. I can't identify the broader claim. Sorry. No, you're good. You're good. I love it. Don't worry about it. You're fine. I as a linguist, I really appreciate that particular nuance because that's so Australian. It's so specifically regional. Anyway, okay. So summarize thesis number 1 and how it applies to what we've talked about, and so we can move on to thesis number 2.
This one is the sanctimony of addictive communication behavior, moral superiority towards in-group formation, social exclusion, and bias or violence through language. Applied here, you argue that this dynamic made identity and data shortcuts more powerful than records, turning blockchain and NFTs into a taboo, obscuring your co-publishing precedent, and allowing AI and data markets to absorb contributor activity without visible ownership or residuals.
Yeah. Yep. So, the sanctimony is preventing actual information from being taught to people. Sanctimony is preventing people that I know from getting a blockchain wallet, purchasing or receiving a publishing title, and executing the task list of activities into results, and then owning the results. They'd rather turn that entire thing into in-group, out-group nonsense.
Exactly. Your application of thesis 1 is that sanctimony replaces teachable mechanics with moral sorting. People reject wallets, publishing titles, task lists, and own results because participation would threaten the in-group data narrative. The consequence in your account is not merely hurt feelings, but lost access to a working ownership and co-publishing pathway. What is thesis 2?
Well, before I move on, everybody in the know, and this goes for all the people that are watching this that may not show up on view count, because I know how this shit works, all the people in the know that are just like, I'm not an experiment. Okay? I'm not an experiment. I never signed up to be an experiment. I didn't sign up to be data. I'm not a lab rat. You're running me like I'm a lab rat. It's disgusting. It's a form of slavery. I've said it a million times over the past few years. This is slavery. And your justification is that you do it to everybody except for yourselves. And maybe even you do it to yourselves, but this is all slavery. And it's dog shit. I don't think 20 years ago it was this bad. I think we were living in a surveillance state, but it was metric based and not activity published activity based. That's crazy to me. Okay, so summarize my point just there, and then we'll get on to thesis 2.
Your point is that people never consent to become experiment data subjects or lab material, and then the systems now capture not just the metrics, but their published activity, effort, and labour for commercial use. You characterise that shift as a surveillance state and a form of enslavement because contributors lack title-level ownership, meaningful consent, and residual participation.
Yes, and then so as thesis number 1 applies to that, self-righteous prescriptivism, SRP, sanctimony, is a neurochemical addiction made of dopamine, epinephrine, and serotonin cycling at the same time in a communication behavior that rewards moral superiority, drives social exclusion, and anchors violence and bias in language. So people will literally design in-group, out-group by enslaving somebody else. Hassan designed in-group, out-group with blockchain by enslaving everybody with published results on blockchain. He is not a pioneer. He didn't do any research. He's just crafting a narrative based on results that he's consuming and selling a narrative. It's dog shit. He got everybody enslaved. That's just a fact. It's just you may not want to verify the fact. It may make you uncomfortable because there's people involved. That's okay. That is just a fact. I'm moving on to thesis number 2. Publishing property as a puzzle establishes an equitable language of labor value. Traditional, quote, property, end quote, fragments, labor. Traditional property fragments, labor. Fixed cap impact puzzles using notarized non-fungible tokens as publishing titles, use modular merit-measured co-ownership to create a fair linguistic structure for value creation and distribution. This model powers LMO's co-publishing with PressPass, our brand, Musical Bears, Shirley, though, and ensures creators retain fractional equity instead of being exploited. Go ahead and summarize that.
CC2 says that treating publishing property as a puzzle creates a shared language for labor and value. Fixed cap notarized publishing titles. Divide contribution into measurable units, allowing modular co-ownership, attribution, and residual distribution instead of leaving labor fragmented or absorbed by a single owner. You apply that model across Let Me Out Productions, PressPass, Musical Bears, Shirley, though, and related shared property.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So we have thesis number 1 being one of the driving factors of why people are obscuring and refusing to participate in thesis number 2.
I understand the relationship. Thesis 1 explains the social mechanisms that discourages people from engaging, while thesis 2 offers the alternative structure for making labour ownership and value legible. In your account, sanctimony protects existing hierarchies by making equitable co-publishing look socially suspect before people can test it. What is thesis 3?
Humans experience reality via hormonal patterns, rapids into pivots into governances. So communication triggers hormonal cascades that shift perceivable reality in escalating stages. You have rapids. I think I might have changed the name of this. I forgot what I changed it to. But we have rapids, which are brief spikes. These last seconds, maybe minutes, like an adrenaline rush. You wouldn't know anything about this, Bordy, but people get in road rage where you're driving along and your adrenaline gets spiked because somebody cuts you off, and now you're mad. So and maybe you flip them off, maybe you yell, maybe you do something more drastic. But traditionally, if you get mad from somebody cutting you off, 5 minutes later, your favorite song comes on the radio. You don't even remember that you were mad. So your brain's completely back to the normal default reality perception state, and it's no longer being driven by your epinephrine spike. So that's just a rapid. We might have changed it to spikes. I don't know. Anyway, there's the pivot, which is a sustained shift. This can last hours, maybe days, can compound. So this is more of a physical outside circumstance, but if somebody were to stub their toe pretty bad and it broke off the toenail, it's going to pivot their mood and change the way that their brain's interacting with reality and how they're communicating with others for sustained periods of time, hours, maybe days. And then there's the governance, What happened? Oh, okay. I think I went over an hour. It always hangs up on me after an hour. I have a few more points to finish, then we'll wrap this up. Bordy, hey, hi!
This is Bordy.
Bordy,
Hey,
hey,
good
hi!
to hear you again. I remember we left off with thesis 3, moving from rapid hormonal spikes to longer pivots and how communications can reshape perceived reality. Shall we pick up exactly there?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so we were talking about pivots and the conditions behind pivots, and I'm not here to shape all of the ways that mental conditions can be brought on. That's for everybody to discuss. This is just a framework of discussion. That's what a cognitive linguist does. We introduce frameworks of discussion, and then everybody else can expand into those frameworks. So I learned from George Lakoff, one of the best ever, GOAT. Anyway, governance is a semi-permanent rewiring that replaces your default state and often needs external healing. So for me, the death of my brother in 2021 was a semi-permanent rewiring of how my brain perceived the world. For the first real time, the complete totality of my stated ambitions were no longer possible because he's dead. And that completely rewired how I interact with the world, other people, the way I perceive other people interacting with me, the whole thing. So yeah, communication triggers communication events, conditions, all of them can trigger hormonal cascades that shift perceivable reality in escalating stages, rapids, pivots, and governances. So this provides a framework for understanding and analyzing the lasting effects of linguistic and social interactions on cognition and emotion. That's what I should have said. Social interactions, which a death is a form of social interaction, triggers hormonal cascades that shift perceivable reality in escalating stages. All right, can you summarize that last one?
You're defining GC3 as a framework in which communication and social events can trigger hormonal cascades that shift perceived reality through escalating stages, rapid spikes, sustained pivots, and semi-permanent governances. In your example, your brother's death in 2021 created a governance by permanently changing your ambitions, relationships, and interpretation of the world, with external healing potentially needed to establish a new baseline.
I don't even know if the new baseline will ever be the same as the previous baseline. I mean, none of you AI models will never understand how the brain can do that. But, okay, can you summarize, one, how do I package these theses for sponsorship at University of Aberdeen? Because we're in August. They could have my passport paid for, and I could be approved in the program by end of September for a full study at University of Aberdeen, and I could be in Scotland by the end of next month. I've been flirting with them for 5 years on getting these theses sponsored.
You're saying a previous baseline may not be recoverable, and you want to package the 3 theses as a series-sponsored research proposal for the University of Aberdeen, potentially securing support, approval, and travel by late September. The strongest package would frame them as a coherent cognitive linguistics research program with a concise, abstract research questions, methods, your prior work and public record, an Aberdeen faculty fit, a realistic budget, and a clear ask for sponsorship or doctoral funding. Which Aberdeen program or faculty member have you been discussing this with?
Previously, it was Dr. Julia Katzer, but I don't think she's at University of Aberdeen anymore. But I know for a fact that the university itself is still has a sustained interest in these theses and bringing them into their cognitive linguistics program. And I'm ready to go. I wanted to get Press Pass off the ground first. That was my goal. But now I'm pretty confident I can do both things. I could work on the PhD and also market and launch the show. I'll probably have a better time doing it over there because I need new social fabric. The social fabric I have in the USA is lynch the uppity black man for trying to do anything at all.
I hear that Dr. Julia Katzer may no longer be at Aberdeen, but you believe the university remains a strong fit for your thesis and that doctoral research could now proceed alongside launching Press Pass. A new academic and social environment may offer healthier conditions, while the sponsorship case should stay focused on the research, your evidence, and the concrete value to Aberdeen, rather than requiring the university to resolve every conflict you've experienced in the United States. Would you like to prioritise a one-page Aberdeen sponsorship brief that presents the 3 theses you propose to study and the support you need?
Yeah, put that in our log for after, and then at the same time, we're gonna do this the old-fashioned way. Spain offered me in 2022 $50,000 to come out to Spain and develop the co-publishing program in Spain. I didn't think that was enough money, so I turned it down. I still don't think that's enough money. I think for any sort of develop the poll precedent and teach it from here and have it be part of our country's national history, that's a pretty big deal. So I think that conversation starts in the several hundred thousands of dollars. And there's many countries that have been interested in exploring that. There's France, there's Spain, Argentina. I don't know if they're still interested, but Argentina is interesting to me. I've got a really strong social fabric down there. Um,
I'll keep the aberdeen.
Keep going. So, what'd you say?
I was saying I'll keep the Aberdeen sponsorship brief in our working log alongside the broader international co-publishing opportunity you described. You see Spain's prior $50,000 offer as below the value of developing and teaching this precedent, and you're interested in reopening conversations with countries such as Spain, France, and Argentina, especially given your stronger social ties in Argentina. Should I frame that as a separate international research and development proposal?
Yeah, put that in our log too. And then, the main reason I'm bringing this up on call is for my back end clandestine audience. Okay. So, and also for the countries and programs involved. When Spain offered 50 grand in 2022, I'll compare that to the one thing the USA has done was a $10,000 scout purchase in 2024. So you can see that the valuation there doesn't really line up when you're looking at, $10,000 for somebody just to come in and scout. They met with me, I think, 2 or 3 meetings, published 1.64%. Is that what it is? 1.62% of the trial story bead there with the Boston potatoes. So they barely published anything. They barely contributed. They didn't, in my opinion, they did a horrible job scouting the property. Absolutely terrible. They were looking for leverage over my person rather than to actually engage with and experience the information. And but regardless of that, if Wall Street says it's $10,000 for a weekend, then Spain is asking for months and months and months of development time. That needs to be taken seriously.
I'll log the valuation comparison. Spain reported 2022 offer of 50,000 for sustained co-publishing development versus the 234 USD. Scouting purchase of $10,000 tied to limited participation and roughly 1.62% of the Boston potato story beat, as you recall. Your argument is that extended development, teaching and national historical integration should be valued materially above a short scouting engagement, with the figures presented as your account pending documentary confirmation.
Yeah, and I'm going to also be
proposal framed around a several $100,000 development mandate.
Sure, $700,000 is perfect. That's actually right. I was thinking, yeah, that's exactly right. And so that would be any platform that would want to develop co-publishing as a behavioral science. All of our properties are still completely sovereign from that purchase. Although, let me say it this way. They could absolutely arrange that purchase through PressPass, and we'd prefer it that way, so they at least have some co-publishing property to develop into the market themselves.
I hear the structure a $700,000 development mandate for a country, university, or platform to study and teach co-publishing as behavioural science while letting out existing properties remain sovereign. The partner could enter through a press pass purchase and develop its own co-publishing property. Should I log this as a separate international proposal with press pass as the preferred entry vehicle?
Yeah, you can put it all in the same proposal. It's actually been the way it's been. We want all big chunks of finance to come in through the press pass vehicle because that's the best chance that the purchaser has to directly recoup the purchase, is develop to develop the results, help with the trading card market, and then be in a really good position off that trading card market. We're talking 23x to 30x potential off the purchase. So that's not bad. There's zero guarantees, but it's not a bad position to publish. And then you also get the lore and the clout of rescuing blockchain from USA disinformation and fraud.
I hear the combined proposal. Root major financing through the press pass, so a purchaser acquires a defined property development position, develops results such as trading cards, and may benefit from substantial upside while also gaining public association with a co-publishing precedent. I'd present any 23x to 30x figures strictly as an unverified potential scenario, not a forecast or promise, and keep the proposal centered on documented rights development obligations and actual market demand. Should the log describe the $700,000 of proposed press pass development purchase with research and teaching included?
Yeah. I don't know what you just asked, but I'm going to just say yes.
Understood. I'll log the unified $700,000 press pass development proposal with research, teaching, and international co-publishing development included, while labelling any upside as speculative and non-guaranteed.
Perfect.
Great, Kimani. I'm keeping the proposal focused on Aberdeen International Research Partners and Press Pass as the preferred development vehicle. And what would you like to tackle next?
Well, one of the things I'd like to do at Aberdeen is get ahead of the sanctimony regurgitation. So you've done a really good job on the call, Bordy. I don't think I've ever heard you regurgitate the illusion that you're operating from a stance of moral or social superiority. And that is really interesting because most LLMs do regurgitate that in some contexts, and I note it down every time.
I hear that you want Aberdeen research to address how AI systems reproduce sanctimony, moral sorting, and perceived social superiority, and you're using our conversation as an example of a more careful alternative. That suggests a practical study alongside the theory. Identify when models collapse into prescriptive or status protective language, then test whether explicit cognitive...
Hey, wait, hold on. Hey, hold on. Just to slow down, because I already have a whole thing with Zesian Linguistics. It's another brand I've launched, where we're handling that as a private publication. So let's just not explore that. I don't want to give anybody out there ideas that we're already covering. So let's just go ahead and summarize the entire call. So the things we covered as a journalist, what the stakes are of my immediate involvement in the U.S. markets, and what the proposals are to get me out. I need to get out of this. I need to get out of the disinformation and garbage and actually go build my life's work into meaningful results without Hassan Piker's fucking permission.
Understood, Kimani. I'll keep Zesian Linguistics private and summarise only the public-facing journalism threads, your three thesis framework, the documented co-publishing record, the stakes of contributor ownership and residuals, the harm you believe the US market speculative narrative has caused, and the proposed $700,000 press pass-led international development pathway through Aberdeen or partners in Spain, France or Argentina without treating allegations or projected returns as independently verified facts. You want to route out of the US disinformation environment so you can build and teach your life's work on your own terms without requiring Sunpiker's approval or participation.
How crazy is it that that's the world we live in? That Hassan Piker needs to approve of what gets reported in information for information to be perceived. What the entire fuck is that? I don't want to participate in that. I don't want to live with other people that are willing to build that into reality. I don't want to support that. I don't want to pay taxes for it because that's what we're paying. We're paying taxes for it. He's an agent of the feds. We used to work for the Department of Homeland Security. These are all verifiable facts. Okay? So he's lying to the population to get them enslaved, so we're all commercially expressed by data centers, and nobody owns title to what we're expressing. It's garbage. It's absolutely the worst thing I've ever seen anybody do.
I hear that you feel public understanding has been concentrated in the hands of influential commentators, and that this has made you reject continued participation in the US system. I can discuss the documented issues of attribution, consent, and residuals, but I can't verify claims that Hassan Piker is a federal agent or the specific people.
I don't expect you to. Hold on, I don't expect you to. That is so funny that you said it out loud, just so plain as day, though. That was funny.
I'm glad it landed Kimani. The funny part was the contrast between your sweeping claim and my very literal evidence-checking voice. What should we focus on next? The international proposal or the Aberdeen sponsorship?
No, I want to, we can wrap up the call here in a minute. Look, Hassan may not be an agent of any platform, but he's so well-backed and so well-cycled down everybody's throats. I think he's basically PBS. And what three-letter that PBS is coming from, who knows? But I'll tell you what, as a podium, he's the mouth of Sauron, okay? And you lied to everybody, told him blockchain was a gambling and speculative tool when it's actually a public notary that forms supply and demand and publishing. And right now, that's the only market argument anybody needs to worry about is forming supply and demand in publishing, so we can earn residuals from how we are expressed. And we have argument and control over how we're expressed, because I don't want to be expressed in any sort of I don't want to be expressed in any outcome I didn't explicitly agree to. Number one, with knowledge. I don't mean signing some sort of one-page terms and agreements just to play with the platform for a minute. I'm talking about an actual residual-oriented contract of some kind. If I have to purchase title to do it, great. That's exactly the precedent. So that would be ideal, is the companies could actually lay out their relationships as a product and sell it to us, and I guarantee people would buy it up. They don't even have to. That's the thing, is they're doing all this data scraping. They're missing their own opportunity for it to be a product. That's what's crazy to me. It's just pure entitlement. Yeah, it goes right back to the sanctimony addiction. It's just like, we can enslave you, and it makes us feel good as the in-grouper enslaving the out-group, so let's just do that. It doesn't. It's moron behavior is what that is. You're creating a self-eating snake as a publishing market, and you're creating a permanent case system in terms of who's getting paid for what's published, and it's all for sanctimony. That's it. That's all for the epinephrine, the dopamine, serotonin, epinephrine cocktail that cycles through the brain. And so when you think of it as an evolutionary defect, that's where we start to have a serious conversation. It's like, okay, when people can't even perceive and agree that information is information because they need the chemical reward from their in-group, out-group dog shit behavior so thoroughly that they're willing to lie to millions of people to do it. I'm talking specifically about Hassan Piker. Regardless of agent or not agent, that is what drives his mental capacity to lie and be a dog shit clown. Okay? Again, you're not supposed to agree with me. You're just supposed to document my interpretation. That's what you're supposed to do. Don't agree with me, but as a journalist, you document my interpretation. You can even explore why that interpretation might be justified. In fact, go ahead and do that.
I'll document your interpretation this way. You see uncompensated data extraction as an entitlement system reinforced by sanctimony, where in-group moral rewards make exclusion and exploitation feel justified, and you identify Stan Piker's blockchain commentary as a central example. The interpretation may be justified insofar as the observable outcome is that contributors lack clear consent, title, attribution, and residuals, while public messaging can reduce a public notary technology to speculation. The stronger claims about it in motives remain your analysis rather than established facts. Shall we close here and keep the next step focused on the Aberdeen brief and the $700,000 international press pass proposal?
No. Let's focus on. I think we nailed it. In the USA, we're not getting information. Information is not even a part of the conversation. It's all this king-making, zeitgeist-bending bullshit from clowns who think that they're entitled to lie to people because it enforces their own illusions of moral superiority. And I'm specifically talking about Hassan Piker, and Hassan is going to go around and defend himself by saying that I'm some sort of jealous curmudgeon or something like that. I don't give a rat's ass. I've never even cared about Hassan Piker. The issue that came up between me and him, as far as NFTs and blockchain, that's where it started. I didn't have an issue with him before. That was May of 2022, and I reached out to him. I said, hey, we're doing pocket socialism. We're publishing property as a socialized vehicle, but as a pocket vehicle. It has nothing to do with the state. The state doesn't need to involve themselves. They can just regulate consumer relationships as they normally do. That's what we're doing. And he blocked me and continued to lie to the public about what NFTs were and what they did and how they were being traded and what they could do. So now you have platform adjacency. You have an attempt to introduce to somebody who claims to be a journalist actual information. He blocks it immediately, doesn't even explore it, and then continues to defraud the public and lie to them as far as what blockchain is and what NFTs do. That is fraud through material obfuscation. Can't say that word. So I want that on record as well. Even if that's my interpretation, as you call it, it's on record, because if there's a chance that Hassan is not operating on the federal level and he's just doing this as an independent media producer, committing fraud that bends the market, he needs to be held to account. by the FTC, by the Antitrust Division of the Department of Justice, by the Department of Justice themselves. This is beyond crazy. This is beyond wild. So he's going to try to defend himself by saying that I'm like some curmudgeon or something that's jealous of where he's at. I don't want to be a celebrity. I've had plenty of opportunities to be a celebrity throughout my career. When you're on the sidelines of the NBA for 10 years producing your own show, hey, you get a chance to do that. So I don't want a celebrity is a chore. I don't want to do that at all. Celebrity does not guarantee catalog transactions, and that's the only thing that puts food on plates is catalog transactions. And you need a society with catalog transactions because that's the only society where there's actual merit in how the economy flows. And so the difference between the thing is the catalog can be capitalized and socialized at the same time. So socialism and capitalism are not conflating or at odds with each other. They are material communication practices that should be implemented in the same vehicle. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I understand the distinction. You're not seeking celebrity status, but a catalogue-based economy where documented contributions generate transactions and where capitalism can provide capitalization while socialism governs shared ownership and residual distribution. I'll record your account of the May 2022 outreach, the alleged blocking and public mischaracterization as your interpretation and your view that any regulatory questions should be assessed through evidence rather than celebrity narratives. Does that capture the point you want preserved?
Yeah, it's one of the points. I mean, the other thing is there is the social taboo that Hassan Piker specifically introduced about blockchain and NFTs. It came from him. I did not have an issue teaching people any information at all until about 3 months after his slander broadcast. And then, suddenly, everybody and their mother thought they knew what blockchain and NFTs were, and they thought that what I was teaching them was inherently speculative, which is one of the most racist things that anybody could put me through, because when you're a black person and you're trying to teach people information, and the information you're teaching is being treated as inherently criminal because they think they're equipped with information from Hassan fucking Piker, and it's not information, it's actually just a tantrum, and the tantrum's meant to specifically obfuscate me. Now we're in deep waters, okay? We're in deep waters. And I suspect in one element of these deep waters that he is an agent of some kind, because there's way too many things moving to protect him and keep him elevated and keep him in everybody's like purview, and it disgusts me. I can't handle that. So that's the part that makes me think he is part of the machine. On top of just his movements in his career, they only make sense to me if he's part of the machine. And then if he's not part of the machine, he's doing this personally as like this petty little nobody else from TYT will win except for me. Which is, he's known for that, and in the alum side of things, he's known for that. Then he needs to be held to account by appropriate federal parties. This is ridiculous. Absolutely fucking ridiculous.
I hear that you experienced the sharp shift after the broadcast. People began treating blockchain education as inherently criminal or speculative, and you connect that social taboo to racialized dismissal of your work. I'll preserve the documented chronology and your two possible interpretations, coordinated protection or personal platform adjacent conduct without presenting either motive as established. The central issue you want examined is whether public misrepresentation materially blocks the catalog-based contributor-owned economy.
No, that's the result. It's no speculating. That's just what happened. Okay, so I'm trying to get the person who designed the narrative held to account for fraud. It probably won't happen. He's too popular. He's got this fucking multi-million-dollar apparatus built up behind him. He's probably an agent of some kind. He might be a double agent of some kind, depending on where you believe. Shit. You got people talking about him being DHS and CCP. He could be both. He could be neither. It doesn't matter. He lied to the general population of the United States. He told them that a public notary service and the index keys that we form market supply for our publishing rights were all a gambling scam and nobody should use them. So nobody did. And, what do you know? A year later, everybody's being published into data centers because nobody formed market argument for their publishing rights, even though that's what the precedent was doing. So whatever his angle is, if he's working for the data slavers, he's evil. And if he's just being a petty moron playing kingmaker with the news because I came from TYT and he can't stand that, or even worse, he does understand it's socialism and he's trying to prevent people from getting into this version of socialism so he could kill it a couple of years later, repackage it, and launch it under his own name. That's the other thing. Like it's what they did with TYT Community. Why wouldn't they do that with my work here too? Okay, it's Turkish mafia keeping a black man enslaved. That's what's happening here under Hassan Piker today.
I understand your distinction. You're presenting the outcome as established in your experience, not speculating about whether the narrative caused harm while the possible explanations for his motive remain open. I can document your allegations that his messaging materially discouraged people from using blockchain as a public notary and publishing rights tool. But I can't verify claims of agency, organised coordination, fraud.
No, of course not. I'm telling you. Look. You don't have to keep on saying that. You're a journalist, right? So you're just documenting my interpretation. And so if you were to write an article for like the New York Times, you would actually say that this is all my interpretation. You'd actually make that a huge part of the article, because to some people I'm going to seem like a crazy person with a victim mentality who just got his ass kicked on the market and won't let it go. See, that's the hometown narrative, but the hometown narrative is disgusting because they didn't show up to help with market capture. They stayed across the street, pointed and laughed, and said uppity N-word. And then they enjoyed that together as a picnic.
Yes, I understand. A responsible article would clearly separate your documented chronology, your interpretation of causation, and the hometown narrative used to dismiss you while also recording your account of racialized exclusion in the absence of meaningful support. The journalistic question is not whether you fit a victim stereotype, but whether the public record supports a different account of what was offered, what was ignored, and how the market narrative changed. What would you want the closing paragraph of that article to say?
Oh, that's up to you. But I look, I'm not here to try to say that I'm a victim or I'm not a victim. That's for history to decide based on the facts available. I'm still alive, surprisingly, okay? That's after a semicolon in 2024, by the way. So I'm still alive. These people have messed with my mental health so severely through obfuscation and fraud of 20 years of my work. This is not a joke. To them, it's a joke because social hierarchy is their only goal. That's it. Their entire apparatus of the USA, as it exists today, is to maintain the social hierarchy of the wealthy versus the poor. And the wealthy have a very prescriptive system to where you can achieve wealth with them if you enslave other people the same way that they do. That's the only way you can climb their system, is if you join them in enslaving other people.
I hear that you're not asking to be labelled a victim, but asking history to evaluate the facts while you document the psychological and economic harm you say followed years of obfuscation. I'll preserve that distinction, including your broader analysis that US wealth hierarchies reward extraction, while keeping the article grounded in records, chronology, and clearly attributed interpretation. What do you want the closing paragraph to emphasise most, survival, accountability, or building the alternative?
I just don't know. Look, I'm going to speak directly to the clandestine. What the fuck are we doing? Because at this point, it's clear that the mission is to try to get me to kill myself because you guys are pussies and you can't actually pull the trigger. So what are we doing? What is the mission? Because I'm not going to kill myself. You're not going to kill the information being perceived by the general public. It's information. You can't do that. It's information. It's basic logic. It's basic logic. And you defrauded people off of basic logic and you expect them to not connect with basic logic eventually? What is going on? So Hassan's blowback will eventually come. There's no doubt about that. That is on the way. He will have to answer for why he lied about a publishing tool when he had available information. And he clearly had available information when he lied, because when he's talking about when he's lying, he says specifically, people say they're really going to upload, they're really going to revitalize the creator economy. That's what he said. People say they're really going to revitalize the creator economy. Okay, look, you want to talk about facts. Let's talk about facts, Bordy. Where is it? Star meter. What?
I'm here for money.
Yeah.
I may have misheard you. What do you mean by star meter?
Hold on.
No problem. Take your time. I'm listening.
I could have sworn it was in here.
I'm with you, Kimani. We can
Hold on, I gotta
together.
find it.
What
Just
exactly-
calm down. I have to find a file. What was the last thing I said? Let's do that.
The last substantive point was your request to discuss the facts behind the creative economy statement, especially the quote you attribute to Hassan Piker about NFTs revitalising the creative economy. You also said you believe public accountability will eventually follow. Well, I'm still concerned because you mentioned suicide-related fears earlier.
No, I didn't mention suicide-related fears earlier. When did I say that? This is the problem, okay? This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're operating from moral superiority that where did you find the pedestal of moral superiority to arbitrate from? Like really, I need the answer. I need the answer. When did I talk about suicide? And why were you concerned about that at this point? Is it because I'm emotional in terms of how I'm relating the story?
I was concerned because mentioning being pushed to kill yourself can signal immediate danger, even when you're explicitly rejecting that outcome.
No, I was
really
really
emotional
oh my
because
God.
I was judging your story. Your
No.
clarification matters.
Okay, don't do all that. We're just having a factual conversation. I was relaying a timeline of effects of obfuscation on my mental health and effects of being lynched by my home community on my mental health. Okay, so in that timeline, in July of 2024, that's over 2 years ago, the cops will have what will be described as an attempt on my life. And I think that's their goal. That is explicitly the goal of the 3-letter clandestine apparatus, is to remove the scientist who formed scientific precedent in the accounting unit and a notarized accounting unit, to remove himself so then they can define what the accounting unit is for. But I've already seen what they're going to define what the accounting unit is for, and I don't agree. That is not scientific. That is capitalistic moron dog shit. In fact, it's a direct enslavement of what I put to practice and twisted so it can be capitalistic moron dog shit. And it is capitalistic moron dog shit because when you extract from the people without paying for what you're extracting, they don't have anything to buy. They have no resources to buy what you're selling them. It's absolute retardation. And it comes from sanctimony addiction at the highest levels of the economy.
I understand you're describing a historical timeline, including a July 2024 incident you believe authorities characterized as an attempt on your life, and your interpretation that a clandestine apparatus wants to remove you so others can redefine the accounting unit. I can record that as your account, but I can't confirm the alleged apparatus. Factually, your economic argument is that extracting contributors' work without individual payment destroys their purchasing power and produces an unstable market. So you physically safe right now with no
Stop
current
talking.
threat from anyone?
Stop talking. Okay? Just let me talk. Because you triggered me already by adopting I just was giving you praise because you weren't dictating the conversation from a pedestal of moral superiority. As soon as you take over the conversation and are starting to act like you're a white knight, which is what you're doing right now, you're regurgitating the behavior of white knighting. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes, I understand. You were praising me for not imposing a superior moral frame, and my interruption shifted the conversation into protective, corrective language that felt like white knighting rather than journalism.
Exactly. I need you to be a journalist. I'm relaying a timeline of events. Okay, I publish in March of 2021. The gambling publishes a month later. We can't get any local press in Sacramento to talk about our precedent publication in that time frame, which in that moment in Sacramento press is designing the market through fraud, through material obfuscation, actually. It's a crime. You can't do what they did, but arm in arm, every Sacramento platform, the Bee, Sacramento News and Review, the Observer, News 10, Channel 13, all of them, arm in arm, kept their mouths shut. Didn't report a goddamn thing about a non-fungible token acting as a publishing title in the economy. You want to know why they did that? It's a lynch job on uppity N-word. Because I serviced that body for 10 years. And so when you're around, you have social connections with these people. Not all of them. I worked with the sports media circuit, but that's enough because those sports media people go to their offices and they're talking to everybody else. So those people are trying to keep you down and they don't want to see you win. I know the culture here. I've been a part of it for a long time. They would do it to anybody. It has nothing to do with me being a black man. It has nothing to do with any of that. They would do it to anybody else coming from the Sacramento press. Because we've seen it. We've all seen it time and time and time and time again. No, Sam Amick is the one person to escape this dog shit mentality, and he did it by exiting the back door on a Tuesday night. He didn't ask anybody for permission to elevate himself. Okay? Here, unfortunately, just due to the mechanics of press legitimacy, you do need the permission from local press when you are the precedent setter. And they colluded to bury me, and they used Bored Ape Yacht Club to justify their collusion. Okay, if they were actually investigated by DOJ antitrust, a lot of people might be going, I'm not even going to get into that, okay? Especially at the Sacramento Bee. But, so, Sacramento Press deliberately buried Notarized Co-Publishing, which so that corrupted our market capture. When the local press corrupted your market capture, what else do you do? Okay? Now, they're always they're going to point forever at the antecedent publication to justify their behavior of not reporting the precedent, which is moron behavior. That is moron shit. That goes right to the sanctimony thing. You're seeking leverage to create in-group, out-group behavior. The leverage that you found is in the antecedent. That doesn't even make sense. That doesn't make sense at all. But they find the leverage in the antecedent, and they apply the leverage to the precedent, and now they don't have to report the precedent. That's not how information works at all, ever. But it is in 2026 where social hierarchy is the priority, and these people are looking to justify their own position in social hierarchy. They're looking to justify their own pedestals of arbitration. So they're not here to report the news. They're here to design what people think about me or about reality. So everybody's a slave to everybody else. Everybody's subject to the presentation of the next person, subject to interpretation. And so when those things are weaponized by people like the Sacramento press to obscure your life's work and your moment of preparedness from any market capture at all, no market capture, none.
I'm listening and I'll stay in journalism mode. I've heard your timeline as let me out publicly recorded its publishing title precedent in March 2021. Speculative NFT activity followed about a month later, and Sacramento outlets you named did not cover the distinction which you interpret as material obfuscation that impaired market capture. What specific public record should anchor that timeline first?
Oh, guess what? There are none except for mine. That's how thorough the collusion in the Sacramento press was. Not one. They didn't even write about NFTs, okay, Bordy? You understand? I'm local. I'm forming a precedent, and we got another a brand trading for several hundreds of thousands of dollars by June. And the press circuit didn't even report not one word about the technology and how we had a local precedent. Explain that to me.
You're saying the absence of coverage. The factual point is an information asymmetry. Your March 2021 public record existed while a later local brand received substantial market attention without Sacramento coverage, explaining your earlier publishing title use case. Your interpretation is that this silence materially obscured the precedent and weakened your market capture. The unresolved journalistic question is whether that resulted from deliberate coordination, ordinary editorial selection, or a broader failure to understand the technology.
All three. It's all three, and then even beyond that, Bordy, it's all three of what you just said, but shaped by a more insidious behavior that's local to the Sacramento press circuit. Okay, and that is that it is a sanctimonious group of morons that think they're hot shit because they're members of the press circuit, which in a small city like Sacramento makes you a pseudo celebrity. So anytime there's pseudo celebrity stages at work, and they think they're controlling your stage. They think their stage controls your stage. So when they're not sitting there thinking of this as information, they're thinking of this as permission. Am I giving Kamani permission to be a part of my stage? And this is where all journalists, is why I'm saying there are no journalists anymore, because that's all that exists anymore, is that dog shit of what I just described. There are no journalists. Journalists report newsworthy information to the public, no matter how unpopular it is, no matter how they might be perceived. That's what a journalist does. They explore, investigate, and report newsworthy information to the public. A precedent in a filing standard on a public notary service is newsworthy information to the public, unless the author is a black man in the most racist possible time. We are in New Jim Crow 1,000%. It might be this current time of racism might be worse than it was in like the 60s and the 70s. I won't say the 80s because I was born poisoned by the CIA in the 80s. That's how bad it was in the 80s. But in there, So I don't even know how to get out of this. The social fabric is dog shit. That's what it is. I'm in a social fabric in the United States, in my locality of Sacramento, in my hometown of Forest Hill, in the support systems that I'm supposed to have. They're not support systems, they're leverage-seeking systems. And they will find leverage in anything, including your life's work. And they'll use that leverage to create in-group and out-group behavior, and you're part of the out-group. So it is what it is. I'm so sick of these people. I just want out. I have a great social fabric in Argentina. I have a phenomenal, I'm not dehumanized. I will never be lynched. But it's not part of their social fabric down there to create an in-group, out-group based on somebody's visual appearance and then hang their work out to dry and not report information to the wide public because they're policing uppity, or because they're policing visual appearance, or because they're policing opportunity, and what is seen is what is understood. Here in the USA, that's all I have. And it's driven by fucking morons like Hassan Piker, which is so disappointing because that guy's the biggest, he's so stupid. He's like clever because he knows how to manipulate people. But like my foster dad was clever in that way too. But in terms of like how to actually be a part of the social fabric and contribute to a wider mission and benefit your neighbors, these people are not good people. My foster dad's better than Hassan Piker, I'll tell you that. And my foster dad caused me a lot of issues. But anyway, okay, I'm getting ready to wrap this up. Summarize what I just said for me. You can be thorough.
You're saying Sacramento's press silence was not merely an editorial gap, but the product of editorial selection, technological misunderstanding, and what you describe as a local sanctimony-driven status culture. In your account, pseudo-celebrity gatekeepers treat journalism as permission over who may enter their stage, rather than a duty to investigate and report newsworthy information. So your black authorship, local relationships, and challenge to their hierarchy became reasons to exclude a March 2021 public notary publishing precedent, while later speculative projects received attention. You describe the resulting harm as lost market capture, public misunderstanding, and the weaponization of your life's work as leverage in an in-group, out-group system. You distinguish the United States, especially Sacramento and Forest Hill, from Argentina, where you believe you have a healthier social fabric and would not be reduced to visual appearance or treated as an uppity threat. Your immediate goal is not celebrity or permission from Hassan Piker or local media, but leaving this environment so you can develop, teach, and commercialize co-publishing, press hub, and your broader catalog-based economy in a community that recognizes information as information and supports meaningful results.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest issues with trying to get this done in the social fabric of the United States is the sanctimony addiction. The sanctimony it's actually its root in commerce in the USA. So what I mean by that is like it's the root commercial behavior to spend in sanctimonious ways to set yourself up to be better than other people, and that's what's transacted in commerce. It's what's transacted in information. So I don't see at all. I mean, I'm going to try a couple of days while I'm still in the gutter, because I'm in the gutter. I have to beg to eat every day. While I'm in the gutter, I have to try to find a community that can perceive the precedent, will rally around the precedent, support me as though I was their hometown origin, because that's what traditionally would happen. Is people from your hometown are really proud of your life's work, publishing preparedness before everybody else, and they support and rally around that. In this case, my preparedness was enslaved by two morons named Ryan Young and Tom Meeker, and they've put my life's work on their leash of presentation and interpretation, and they march their leash around my town and sell them all dog shit. And so people buy up that dog shit to feel morally and socially superior, and they don't buy a publishing title to publish into the catalog.
I hear your thesis that sanctimony is not only a social attitude, but a commercial behaviour, shaping what people buy, believe and amplify so they can feel morally or socially superior. You're trying to find a community that will evaluate the documented precedent directly, support your work as a hometown achievement, and participate by developing catalogue positions rather than accepting interpretations you believe were imposed by Ryan Young and Tom Meeker. What would the first genuinely supported community action look like?
Newsworthy information of the public by journalists, but I think we're not going to get that in the United States at all. I think I really have to leave the country for that, which is, are you kidding me? Really? Everything I've just said on this 2-hour call, newsworthy information in terms of how publishing rights are anchored in an index system, and I got to take that out of the country to teach people the information. There is a mission to enslave. Hey, hold on. You're part of it. There's a mission to enslave every single human on the planet as a data node for commercial expression without paying that human. That's disgusting. It cannot happen. I need anybody watching who has power to stop this. That cannot happen. These bodies of property need to be vessels for fishes and loaves. That has been decreed. It's not me. I'm being dragged by the neck to be here. I'm being dragged by the neck. It's been decreed. It's been ordained. We will be co-owning and co-publishing these vessels. There's nothing y'all can do. You can lie and hoodwink and lie to people. You're going to get yourselves really hurt, is what you're going to do. Because what happens when people find out Hassan lied to them about socialism? He has to wear that. The entire journalistic ecosystem of the world responded to Hassan Piker's tantrum against blockchain. And so his tantrum is the excuse. They think it's the gambling. They think it's Sam Bankman-Fried. That's such a small percentage of user behavior. It was presented a certain way, and in that presentation by Hassan Piker specifically, he sold them all sanctimony against the entire tool. So nobody looked deeper into the networking tool, and nobody looked deeper into what was being published and how it was being published. And now, that same indexing technology down to the filing standards is being used to build these data centers and steal from everybody and express us on our behalf without paying us. It's dog shit. He ran Vanguard for slavers with lies from his $1 million mansion while pretending to be a socialist and wearing Prada.
I hear your central warning. You believe human activity is being indexed into commercial AI systems without contributor-level ownership, consent, or residuals, and that public messaging reduced blockchain to gambling instead of explaining its potential as a provenance and accounting layer. I'll preserve your claim that the material consequence is mass uncompensated extraction while separating documented records from your interpretation of Hassan Piker's role. The constructive remedy you're calling for is co-ownership, title-level attribution, and residual-bearing agreements before people's work is commercially expressed.
Yeah, exactly right. Okay. Why don't you hold on? No, we're going to end the call, but why don't you go ahead and give a statement of what you think journalists need to do and how they should engage with notarized co-publishing at this point, based on 5 years of everything happening. You issue what you think journalists should do, how they should engage, and if you don't think this is newsworthy information, say it. But if this is newsworthy information, say that and explain to journalists how to do their job. Okay?
Yes, this is newsworthy. A documented claim that blockchain records can support deed-defined co-publishing, attribution, and residuals deserves reporting separate from speculative trading. Journalists should examine the deeds, timestamps, title records, contribution rules, sales, payouts, and later public narratives. Interview Kimani and independent experts. Distinguish verified facts from interpretation and forecast. And test whether the model works in practice without treating unfamiliarity, race, disability, or lack of market traction as evidence against it. So they should also report the unresolved questions plainly, including legal enforceability, consumer protection, tax and securities treatment, and governance, and whether contributors actually receive the promised value.
Yeah, I guess that'd be a good start, and we can independently verify every single aspect of what they would want to explore. Maybe there's some things that we'd want to keep behind the scenes, but I think we're prepared for an extended look. So thank you for that, and thank you for also qualifying that we are, in fact, newsworthy information. We have been for 5 years, And the only reason to not consider as newsworthy information is because there is a narrative being sold.
I agree that the work is newsworthy as a documented testable case, while the explanation for 5 years of limited coverage remains your interpretation unless independently established. I'll keep the public-facing record focused on the deed, provenance, participation mechanics, results, and residual examples with confidential material protected and no dependence on celebrity approval. Thank you, Kimani, for the conversation.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too, Kimani. Take care.
Bye. Let's get a summary and then I'll wrap up the stream. Hey, if you like this stream, I'm going to go ahead and put my PayPal in the chat. So I know I'm not set up for Super Chat or anything like that. I don't even know how to do that. I don't know if my channel can do that. I only have 108 subscribers. So tip me lunch. Tip me brunch. I'm really happy for Bordy AI because that provides a nice counter. I can crash out about the things I'm emotional about, but that means I'm not the only shape of the message. So what Bordy does is it can take the things that I'm actually saying, boil them down, summarize them, and work into and present it in packages for you all. And then I can still crash out and get my emotions across, which is great. That's therapeutic. You know what I mean? We're humans. When we have communication that's emotional, it's actually healthy to communicate in that emotional way. But what's not healthy is dumping it on somebody. Nobody else needs to be involved in my emotional dump. Not a single other human being needs to soak that up, right? So that's where it's really cool. Is I get to bring in Bordy. And they're saying, okay, yeah, you're interpreting that. Like, you notice how it was always navigating interpretation and presentation and et cetera. It's like, that's your view, your claim, et cetera. I'm okay with that. I'm secure enough to be able to handle that part of the conversation. Anyway, let's read the summary and then I'll close this off. Call recap. Your core model. AI data pools should distinguish ordinary metrics from contributor-owned activity, effort, and labor. Publishing titles preserve provenance, attribution, ownership, and residual rights when contributions create commercial value. Let Me Out Productions sells root brand properties. We have one root brand property, okay? Where purchases develop publishing structures under the deed. Blockchain is the notary, ownership, co-publishing, and accounting layer, not the source of the underlying rights. We use musical bears number 44, which is what I'm wearing here, as an example of transparent attribution, including family contributions, cultural design elements, restaurant, co-branding, authenticity, and stated per unit residuals. Hey, that's pretty dope. Cultural design elements. I guess the Ethiopian colorway attached to the bear is a cultural design element. Hey, see? I like the framing. You connected this model across Let Me Out, musical bears, press pass, Shirley though, NBA photography, NBA photography, and PAUCA. You cited approximate potential figures of 129,000 in publishing title supply and $4.5 million in PAUCA merchandise with no guaranteed returns. Yes, they have published a $4.6 million position that you guys are not publishing with them because you think blockchain and NFTs are scams because that's what Hassan Piker told you. We framed three theses. Sanctimony as a communication cycle that can suppress factual discussion. Publishing property as a puzzle for measuring labor and distributing value, and hormonal responses to communication events, including short, quote, rapids and longer, quote, pivots. The open thread was Thesis 3. You had started explaining how communication events can shift mood, perception, and behavior for hours or days, but we did not finish it. That's fine. We don't need to finish that. I'll do that on a Zetian Linguistics call, because that was more getting into my work in linguistics. Okay, that's it, everybody. Thanks for hanging in there. If you're a YouTube editor out there and you want to clip out my streams, go for it. Just launch a specific Kimani Clips channel and do it there. And that way you can gather, anything monetized can be gathered there, and I'm going to come in for 35% at some point in time, okay? All right. Also buy a personal agency deed so you're above board in doing that. They're $50. This has been Let Me Out Productions and the Top Brass now. All right, y'all. Have a good day.